for Shaden Sharp, and the Magic will take timeout. Throws it away, stolen by Ayton. 3-on-2, DA on the drive, steps through, dunks it in! 22 for DA on the steal and finish. Showing off the handles.
We got off to a tough start. Another tough first quarter for us. That was a little disappointing knowing, that this team was going to come out and fight. We just played them not too long ago, so we knew that they were coming to try to get their leg back, as what we call it.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Dewing starts now.
I can't wait to get into this piece that was put together by Jason Quick of The Athletic. He did something really cool, and I'll give you details on it for those of you that don't have a subscription to their service. What Quick did is he decided to go around not to Trailblazer teammates, but to different players around the NBA in different locker rooms. He wanted to find out what these guys had, their thoughts on Toumani Camara, the type of defender he is, the type of competitor he is. What's your take on Toumani? Because he sure seems to be pissing off a lot of different guys around the NBA because he's relentless. And we saw it again last night. Toumani Camara is awesome. How long has it been, for the Blazers in their search of legitimate 3-and-D type wings? They've been starting guys at the forward spots who are undersized for years. I guess probably since the Frenchie, right? Nick Batum. And then once he was gone, the Blazers have never been able to replace that. And LaMarcus, those two guys, vacated, and then boom. Problems because the roster's been incomplete. And now all of a sudden, Portland went from having nothing to having two legitimate wing players, 3-and-D types who absolutely get after it on both ends of the floor. Of course, I'm talking about Toumani Camara and Deni Avdija. But Camara is a badass. His length, his desire to defend, he just wants to play defense more than just about everyone else in the league. And I've always wondered this. Are there certain guys that just don't have the athleticism required to play good defense? Are you born with certain physical tools that allow you to be a better defender? Because some guys in the NBA seem to really struggle with playing defense. Do they have the physical tools to do it? Is it a want to? How much of it is coaching? Well, when you watch a guy like Toumani Camara, clearly he's got certain physical gifts. He's got great size and incredible long arms. The arms are like go-go gadget arms. And so his length is a problem, and it creates a lot of issues for guards because they don't want to deal with guys like Toumani Camara with the length and, the physicality and the reach. And Toumani can cause all sorts of problems for guys that like to handle the rock. Well, here's the difference, though. Toumani's big, and for a guy of his size to pick up dudes full court and get after it game in and game out and to be aggressive and physical. And we talked about the game that he had a few days ago where he had his best offensive performance with 24 points. And he was asked about it after the game, hey, was that your best offensive game? And he quickly turned it back to defense. He's like, really, I didn't really think too much about that because I was not happy with my one-on-one defense. I couldn't keep guys in front of me. I did not play up to my standard. When guys are talking like that, do you realize how badly this franchise has needed someone like that for years because of the defensive issues? Toumani Camara takes pride in playing defense. Toumani Camara takes pride in being able to stay in front of his man. Toumani Camara takes pride in taunting other guys around the league on the fact that he's going to pick them up full court for 48 minutes and go after them. And guys don't like that. They're used to guys in the NBA who are soft or who don't play hard all the time or guys don't really want to defend. A lot of guys talk about playing defense, but do they really want to play defense? So Toumani Camara is making me believe that defense really does come down to a desire, a want to. You've got to sacrifice, and you've got to be willing to put your balls out there and get after it to be a good defender. Now, do I think that certain guys, even if they try hard, that they're not going to be very good defenders because they lack athleticism? Yes, I think there are guys like that. But if you combine the tools that Toumani has with the athleticism and length with that insane desire, the freaky desire to go after guys, well, he's what you've got. It's amazing. He is the quintessential Chauncey Billups type player. I think when Chauncey looks at the Trailblazers right now, through his coaching eyes, I think he sees a lot of who he was as a player in Toumani Camara. And what we're seeing with both Denny and Toumani right now, because of their willingness to get after it on both ends of the floor, coach is releasing more responsibility to him because he trusts them. He knows that they're going to follow through. He knows that they're going to play their asses off and just totally get after it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that after last night's game, I haven't felt this good about the Trailblazers as a whole in multiple seasons. But last night was a blueprint for what is coming, and I'm excited about it. They have 5 young players who are emerging right before our eyes and playing better, and we're seeing tangible evidence on the floor with their production. And this season's all about player development. How many times have I talked about that this year? A ton. But that's what it's about. It's about player development. 2 things. We always have to go back to this to make sure that we understand where the franchise is at and what they're trying to accomplish. If you're a Trailblazer fan, the 2 most important things come in, and I think you understand this, talent acquisition. So that comes in the form of draft picks and young assets. Draft picks, obviously, the upcoming draft would be fabulous because it's going to be stockpile with talent. But the young assets would come in the form of, guys like Deni Avdija or Toumani Camara that you pick up in a trade. They did not want to give up Toumani. The Suns did not want to give up Toumani Camara. Very diligent throughout the process when he was putting that trade together because that's a player he identified that he wanted. It's not too often you see teams, clamoring for, someone taken in the second round at number 52? Well, Toumani Camara is that player because he's good. And he's going to be one of those guys a few years from now, you're going to be like, where did Toumani come from? And you're going to look at him and be like, he was a second-round pick? How the heck did that happen? Now, there are guys like that, right? But Toumani's great. But defensively, what we saw last night, that energy, the defense, the offense was terrific, but it was all sparked by the defensive effort and play. And not just from Toumani, but Denny, Scoot Henderson. His defense over the last 3 or 4 weeks has been really good. He's been getting after it on both ends. But defensively, he was active. Donovan Clingan struggled with foul issues last night, but he's a great shot blocker. The overall commitment and connectiveness on that end of the floor last night for the Blazers was great. So what you have right now is a team going through a rebuild, and they've been in it now for a few years, but they're getting on the other side of it. And we have 5 players now. Scoot, we're seeing improvement. Shaedon, we're seeing improvement. Donovan Clingan, obviously a find for the Blazers in round number 1. The shot blocking, the rebounding. He hasn't played a ton, limited minutes, but he's been very effective when he has played. They're thrilled with what they see in Donovan. And then you got the 2 wings up front, Denny and Toumani. And those guys have been sensational, the 2 best players on the team. So you have 5 guys, young players, building blocks for the future who are all showing improvement. And then on top of that, what we're seeing is, aside from the individual performances, we're seeing the players now start to receive the message and the coaching that Chauncey Billups and his staff have put out there, and now we're seeing guys embrace that and execute it on the floor. So better rebounding, more connectiveness on defense, guys communicating better, getting in the right position, and then attacking. And what I saw last night, and maybe you felt this or saw this as well, but it looked to me like, especially with the defense, less thinking and just more acting, relying on their athleticism and their abilities to get them where they want to go because mentally they're starting to really understand. And when you have understanding as a great athlete, it frees you up to be able to go out and really attack. And that's what I saw last night. That was a great performance. I think that was the best defensive performance of the year. And then most importantly, it was led by your 2 young guards. Scoot Henderson, 23 points, 7 assists. He has been fabulous over the last 6 to 9 games, the last few weeks. We're seeing him emerge. He's turning a corner. And then Shaedon Sharpe. He showed it all last night. Put the ball on the floor, attacked the rim. We saw him in transition, showcasing the athleticism, the 3-point shot. And he had a couple of real nasty step-back threes last night. And it comes easy for him because of the athleticism. He makes it look easy. But the fluidity in which he's able to move around the floor and operate is really nice. And the best part is, he got benched last week for poor defense or not playing defense up to the level that Chauncey Billups thinks he's capable of. And he expects a lot from Shaedon because he believes he's got a chance to be a star, so he put him on the bench. Well, Shaedon has responded. No pouting, responded. And Coach has mentioned the last couple of games he's done a much better job of being in position and not blowing assignments defensively. So that's a good sign. So I'm thrilled with what I see, but the Blazers all over. But Shaedon Sharpe, sensational last night, 9 of 14 shooting, 23 points. And after the game, Coach Billups talked about his performance.
I love it. I want somebody to get into it with Shaedon every game. We need it. He needs it. Every time he gets upset out there, it's happened another time. I think it was Dylan Brooks at one time this year. Every time it happens, it takes him to another level. So I love a mad Shaedon. We're best like that. I
love a mad Shaedon, too. Shaedon, once he gets popped or someone gets up in his grill, he really starts to get after it. And who is that guy? Badazzi. The center for the Magic. He's kind of a whiny European-type dude, and he got mad and started lipping off to Shaedon, and they got into it, and you could see that little interaction with Greasy Clown and Shaedon really got him going, got his juices kind of popping, and after that he took over. But he was terrific. And for Scoot Henderson, just more of what we've seen over the last few weeks, on top of things, defensively, on top of things on offense, making good decisions. He was really good at attacking the rim last night. He was finishing with confidence and with touch. And here's what Coach had to say about Scoot.
Yeah, I thought Scoot was excellent the entire night. I thought he picked his spots very well. I talked about it before in the pregame presser. Just needing his intention to get to that basket was going to be huge against such an elite defensive team. And I just thought he picked his spots great. He knocked down his shots, but his playmaking was good. His defense was good. He was scrappy out there. He was good. It was just a great floor game the entire way through for Scoot.
All right, good night for the Trailblazers. And I've got more thoughts. I'll get to the Jason Quick story, which is terrific. But when we come back, I'm here at Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports. Super Bowl is coming up in a week, and we're going to talk with sportsbook manager Justin here at Spirit Mountain Casino. We'll find out about the money movement so far with the Chiefs and Eagles, prop bets, the whole shebang. We'll talk with Justin coming up next. And then at 5:20, one of my favorites, Brad Bakken of CBS Sports, talking NBA ahead of the deadline. What's going to happen with Jimmy Butler? I'm Chad Doing. You got the Rip City Drive. Hope you're enjoying your Friday. We'll talk with sportsbook manager Justin from Spirit Mountain coming up next. All right, what a treat this is. I didn't know when I was driving down here today that I would have a chance to get my man back on the show, but he's here, the sportsbook manager at Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports. Justin Ballinger is with me once again, and what a big week it is because we know the matchup now, Chiefs and Eagles, and we get through the first week, and then next week we'll move into all of the pregame shows with both teams on site down in New Orleans. So this is where the excitement starts to build, and I love the matchup because for two reasons. One, I believe these are the two best teams in football. Mm-hmm. I don't doubt that at all, but also I like it because I love the storyline of a team in Kansas City being in the bowl with a chance to do something we've never seen before and win their third straight Super Bowl. I think it's great.
Right. Totally to the chagrin of the entire country, it seems like.
I know.
No, yeah, it's excellent. Rematch from 2 years ago. It was a super competitive game at the time. I think, it's going to be, if not better, game this time around, and we'll see what happens.
What are your thoughts on the officiating from the standpoint that I have always thought that once sports gambling became legalized by the federal government, and then these other states would be able to decide how they wanted to handle everything with sports betting, that it would bring a certain level of awareness to fans because so many more people are betting on games now to where they take more interest in calls that can have an impact on the game. What do you hear from people who wager, your thoughts on that, and the way that the sports gambling can actually help sports from the standpoint that there's more eyeballs and it can bring greater integrity to the game?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the past, you'd have a lot of people who might be more casual fan. They might do something like, well, just let me know who won the game, you know, and check the final score after the fact. But now, I mean, with the betting, you can bet first quarter, you can bet props on certain specific plays, you can bet halftimes, you can bet on players, you can bet, the list goes on and on and on. And I think there is every single play that occurs during an NFL game affects someone somewhere in some way nowadays, and I think that's the big difference.
All right, so Chiefs and Eagles, rematch from 2 years ago, which was a sensational football game. What did you think about the championship games? First off, the Eagles, 7 rushing touchdowns. They really started to take control of the game before the end of the first half when they got the touchdown that was extended from a pass interference penalty. Fumble on the kickoff by the Commanders. Eagles get the ball. They had another drive extended by a late hit out of bounds. They get the score. They're up by 15, and that's where things really seem to turn after that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we had touched on it last week when I was on. We kind of talked about that the Eagles, they seem to be this – they start strong, and then they hold that lead, if not grow that lead throughout the game.
Yeah.
And, they started strong. There was that – about halfway through the second quarter, it felt like the Commanders were actually making that push back, and then everything you described just now kind of occurred, and the Eagles obviously not only didn't take their foot off the pedal, they accelerated, in the second half and just blew them out.
Yeah, I've talked to several insiders, like talent evaluators, and they all seem to agree that the Eagles have the best roster from top down in the NFL. So I see a lot of what you're seeing. It's like when the Eagles get rolling with their talent level and things start to snowball, then they can have that type of result like we saw against Washington where you turn the football over a couple of times, you give them a short field with their ability to run the football, their balance, and then boom, all of a sudden the game's out of hand because they're so powerful.
Right. And how about their first play? Everyone knows who's getting the ball. It's Saquon, and he's still busts one. So it's just, it's incredible what they're able to do right now.
I wonder if Saquon, because the running back over the last several years has appeared to be devalued in the NFL, but it's nice to have Saquon step up this year, 2,000 yards, really change the dynamics of that Eagles offense and showcase once again that, having a franchise-type running back can be a big difference for a football team.
Absolutely. I mean, they say it mostly when quarterbacks get drafted, but the situation, is everything. And I think, not to rag on the Giants too hard, during this segment or anything, but going from New York out to Philadelphia, just, the offensive line, the schemes, the players around him just really allowed him to open up and you saw the results.
Now with Washington, obviously, they got a star at quarterback in Jayden Daniels. He might be top 5 in the NFL right now with just 1 year under his belt. They're going to have to make some additions. They need some help on defense. But I would think that Washington, going into next year with their quarterback play and their coaching staff and the work that they've done so far in that first year with the brand new regime, that could be a team that people look to put futures on because you see the potential there with what they've got with Jayden Daniels.
Absolutely. I fully agree with that. I think not only is Jayden Daniels already, towards the top of the NFC ranks, I think if he's not there, he will be there very shortly. I think Washington has a something really, really good to look forward to for a long time. And,
Yeah.
you know, we always talk about you got your Mahomes, your Allen, your Lamar, your Joe Burrow, and it's kind of like, who's the next guy, you know, after
He might
that?
be the one.
It might be Jaden. We'll see. Time will tell.
We're talking with Justin Ballinger. He's the sportsbook manager here at Spirit Mountain Casino. All right, Bills and Chiefs, did it play out? We figured it would be a close and highly competitive football game, but did it play out kind of how you anticipated?
It did. You know, the one thing that I was actually surprised about was, like, the Bills had the ball with, you know, the last chance to go down and score. They had all the timeouts, and, you know, I think if you would have offered them that situation pregame, they'd absolutely take it. And, you know, like as we kind of talked about before we went on air here, I mean, Spagnuolo in the clutch is just ridiculous, you know, and that corner blitz to end the game, and you know.
I was talking with Joe DeLeon yesterday, who you know, covers football, and he made a good point about Spagnuolo that I respect a great deal. Like, a lot of coaches are aggressive, right? Or they want to be aggressive. But then when they get in a tight ball game in a big moment, they go away from what they usually do. But that's not Spagnuolo. Like, he's aggressive. His team knows they're going to be aggressive. And in the biggest spot, in the biggest moment on 4th and 5, he dials up a corner blitz to get pressure on Allen. And it worked because he forced him out of the pocket and made him make a throw that was very difficult. That's a coach that has convictions and doesn't run from that.
Exactly. I mean, and, you know, the Chiefs having such a sustained success over time. You know, he knows the players. The players know him. They know what's going to get called. And I think it's the perfect, you know, fearless kind of a way to go about it.
I love it. Yeah. So that's synergy. Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, they're tough. So, you know, this game, what was your first thought when the matchup was set? Like, what were some of the things you were thinking about with the Chiefs and Eagles rematch from 2 years ago?
You know, my first thought actually was, I think the Eagles roster to me is better.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs is maybe not quite the same.
I agree.
But, you know, watching just when you watch the Bills-Chiefs game and you sit there and, you know, not only take Mahomes and Kelce and all the players out of it, the buttons Andy Reid presses, the buttons Spagnuolo presses, it's just they have it figured out. They're not a team that I would want to have to try to go late into a game and out-coach to have to win. You know, you're going to want to have a cushion if you can against all of Kansas City, really.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, so I'm looking at the sheet here at Spirit Mountain Casino. Right now, line at 1.5. Chiefs are favored. And we've got the total set at 49. Has that been pretty static throughout the course of the first week?
Yeah, pretty static. The total came down a point or half a point, went up half a point. It actually came back down a half point this morning here. But the spread itself has been Chiefs 1.5 pretty much since the line was set. And I don't foresee it really moving. You know, maybe to 1 or 2, but I don't foresee it moving beyond that kind of range there.
Okay, so here's what I think about the game, the side. So I'm with you. I think the Eagles have the best roster. Mm-hmm. I think they've got the ability or the capability to take out the Chiefs. I don't doubt that. And part of me is saying the Eagles are the play here, especially on the money line. You're getting great value at plus 110. But I also believe it's going to be a close game, just like last time, a one-score game. And in that situation, I can't see any reason to bet against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid because they've proven it time and time again in these one-score games that they're going to make the good decision. They're not going to make the big mistake. Reid and Spagnuolo will scheme it up to put their players in the best position to succeed. And when I look at Nick Sirianni and his staff compared to Andy Reid and his, I just think there's a major advantage. And I love Jalen Hurts, but Patrick Mahomes is the best. I don't know how it's hard to bet against that.
It really is. It really is. You know, he joked, sat there for 23 years betting against Tom Brady, like, oh, this is the year. You know, the other team has a better roster. Belichick and him come out on top every single time.
Yes.
You know, and it has a very similar just feel to when a clutch moment needs to happen, they know what to do to get it done.
And it doesn't mean that makes the Chiefs the right side, but in my mind, it's hard to get past that, right?
Right. It's like, yeah, there's a little mental block there. You know, you need to jump over that hurdle if you want to lay the Eagles there.
That's great. So what do you expect to happen? Obviously, the betting will get heavier as we get closer to the game. Here at Spirit Mountain Casino, you've got the Tribe. Like, are you expecting as we get closer to Super Sunday that more Chief money is going to come in? Is that what you would anticipate here? What do you think is going to happen?
Exactly. That's what I'd anticipate here. You know, when last year and 2 years ago, really, the Chiefs were kind of the lopsided side. The only time that we were here where we didn't see that was when they played the Bucks, but then you kind of had, it's Tom Brady going against Mahomes, so that makes sense why it wouldn't have been lopsided. But, yeah, I'm fully expecting plenty of Chiefs money to come in the next 8-9 days.
All right, so prop bets for the Super Bowls that you've run down here, are prop bets the most popular form of wager on the Super Bowl with all the different options?
Correct, yeah. I mean, you'll see larger bet amounts on the game itself, the point spread or the money lines, the totals there. But in terms of volume, absolutely with the prop bets.
Do you have limits on props in terms of how much you can wager on a prop bet, or does it vary prop to prop?
It varies prop to prop. There's different, some of them are 500 to 1 payouts and stuff. So, I'm not, for those of you who want to win, maybe 10, 15 million or something.
You're not going to take
that.
Yeah,
we'll pump the brakes a little bit there. But, no, generally props, $500,000 and go from there.
That's awesome. So with the prop bets, you don't have all of them in yet from MGM. So when do you expect to have the entire menu of props available?
Yeah, I was telling people starting Monday morning we should be fully set, good to go. So we'll have a full week there with everything available that we're going to have.
Well, the great thing is with Spirit Mountain, and I'll be down here for the Super Bowl, the big game party, which will be in the event center. It's the biggest big game party in the state of Oregon, and I've been down here for years for it. You know how great it is. Mm-hmm. So what you can do is you come down, you can make a weekend of it. If you stop by the Coyote Club desk, you can get tickets. They're going to have food that they will serve throughout the course of the game and at halftime, so you'll be dialed in there. You can watch the game. But before the party begins, you can come down here and get all of your wagers in.
Absolutely.
Hang out in the party, watch the game, and then you can come down and collect on your winning tickets after. So it's the perfect setup to hang out and enjoy Super Big Game Weekend.
It's perfect. And like we touched on at the top of the segment here, there's so many different plays and things that you can bet on nowadays. I mean, you can load up and have action for the entire game, down at the event center.
So what are some of your favorite props to look at? Like my buddy, I've got one. I've got a buddy who is musically inclined, so when he knows the artist, he likes to wager the national anthem length, based on who's singing it. And then my buddy, he goes coin toss. He takes the heads every year.
Okay.
He likes to put $500 down on that, and then he'll pick a side and go with it that way. He loves the coin toss because it's very simple. It's heads or tails, baby.
Right. I'm kind of on the opposite side of that because I don't want to be down $500 before the game even
then
kicks
you're
off.
Desperate,
right, and then you're playing catch up. But no, there's fun. There's always fun ones like will there be a safety? Something.
Yeah.
Will the game go to overtime? I'm one where I look for a bigger payout. I'm looking for those 20 to 1, 50 to 1 type bets. Like maybe yes, there will be a safety, for example.
Or last year was overtime.
Last year was overtime, right? And that's a pretty rare one. You can bet. We got things. Will both teams score 3+ touchdowns? Will both teams score 4+ touchdowns?
Yeah.
Different things like that. You think it's really low scoring or high scoring. There's different props where you can kind of mold it into your, instead of betting the over or under, you can actually bet props to kind of cover those sides for you as well.
And I'm assuming a lot of people, you can do this. It might be fun to add some interest to the game, but you could also parlay some of the prop bets, right?
Correct, and there's actually some that are pre-made parlays, if you will, in themselves.
So it's like a menu. You can pick the parlay you want.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what they're doing, one of the ones that they're doing this year is you can choose, a player on either team to have an anytime touchdown parlayed with that team just to win the game. So I thought some of those were pretty fun. If you think Kelsey's going to score again and the Chiefs are going to win, why not combine them both into one?
Now, do you have a side that you're pulling for already, or are you going to wait? You don't know yet, based on futures and everything that's come in. Are you probably going to be leaning Eagles by the end of the week, or where are you at right now?
I think we'll probably be leaning Eagles, but I can tell you some of the big games that we've had in the last month or so, with the college football and some of the earlier playoff games, we had a lot larger lopsided, liabilities comparatively. There are still obviously 8-9 days before the Super Bowl, so that could change drastically, which it did last year very quickly. But we'll see. As of right now, let's have a good, fun, clean game.
Yeah, that's great. So, because last year you were pulling for the Niners, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yes, I remember you pacing around. Last year.
Yeah. Last year was fun, and it wasn't just us. I think it was every sports book in the country kind of got whooped up a little bit last year
because of the Chiefs pulling out that overtime victory. Mm-hmm. That's great. So I love the props, and what's amazing about the sports books now is like, or for, like if people come down to Spirit Mountain, like the wide variety of props. Like you can wager on just about anything and everything inside of the game, which makes it fun.
Right. There's options are unlimited. It's whatever your heart desires.
So what does your gut tell you? Because you see the number, the matchups, and you've had a full year to digest all of this. So when you see the number, Chiefs 1.5 point favorite over the Eagles, like what do your instincts tell you there?
Yeah, going back to last year, the Niners, to me, felt like the team with the better roster. I felt like they were probably hotter going into the Super Bowl as well.
Yeah. And
this just seems a little too eerily similar to last year for me. I think the Eagles have the better roster. They obviously came off, a 32-point blowout win coming into this. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm not betting against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Spagnuolo and Chris Jones. It's just my gut, it tells me in the NFL you see consistency a lot of the time, and I think my gut's telling me to stay consistent.
Don't you think that there is some value there, though, that with certain teams or different situations across sport, that when you have great coaching, great organization, teams that have proven over the course of time that in big game moments they always find a way to execute and come through. I mean, there is some value there in having guys like Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo on your side, right? Right.
It's almost, like the comfort, factor that goes into these games. Like you when you bet on the Chiefs, that you're not gonna get screwed over by, some silly play call that leads to an absurd turnover or something late in the fourth quarter. That they're gonna, give it the best absolute chance for you to win your bet, and you're not going to see anything silly from them.
All right, Saquon Barkley's been awesome. Do you have the number in front of you? Do we have a rushing total for him yet in the game for Saquon Barkley?
We do have a rushing total. I do not have it in front of me at this time.
That's fine. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No, you're good.
I was just curious what that number's at because I'm anxious to see what Saquon's going to do on the big stage because you've got the Chiefs, good defensive team. Saquon Barkley obviously going to be featured by the Eagles. I want to see how that's going to play out. I'm curious.
Yeah, and he's had success against everyone else so far, and it's Chris Jones, Saquon Barkley. Maybe they're going to find the formula to stop him.
And the interesting part about the game 2 years ago is that the Chiefs won, and Patrick Mahomes made a couple of big plays down the stretch, but the better game and the guy who came in second in the MVP voting was Jalen Hurts.
Yeah,
he was terrific.
Yeah, he was fantastic. And he had that one fumble, that really cost them. And, you take that out, and it's like, do they win the game if that doesn't happen?
What I love about Jalen Hurts or watching him play is, you talk about an edge with Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo, but what I love about Jalen Hurts is that his poise. And we've seen it from his days in college where, he gets benched in favor of Tua, and they go on to win the championship, but he doesn't flinch or complain. He comes back the next year to be a good teammate. And then he gets called upon in the SEC title game and produces. Then he goes to Oklahoma and proves that he can be more than just a runner but a thrower. But what I like in those big game moments that he's had, several opportunities to perform in, his demeanor. It's very calm. Mm-hmm. He doesn't seem to get over excited or frustrated no matter what the situation may be. So his poise gives me confidence because he looks like he's under control out there.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. He is it's almost – like scary how calm he is in some of the situations, It's even when he does something fantastic, they score a big touchdown, and he's kind of just walking off maybe with a slight smirk and nothing more, and that's what you want from a quarterback, though. You don't want to have them wearing their emotions on their sleeves, So.
I agree. I was going to ask you too. Do you feel better now that in the rematch Gonzaga laid the whooping on Oregon State? Does that ease the pain just a little bit?
I actually just got back yesterday. I went up to the game on Tuesday.
Oh, you did?
I did. I was there in person.
Hey, how was the atmosphere?
It was electric. I haven't been in that building for 14 years now. The students were fantastic.
Is that your first time back since graduating?
First time back on campus.
On campus.
Yeah. So
how much? That's got to be fun to go back because you've spoken about your time at Gonzaga very very fondly. It had to be cool to go back and just remember your experiences in college and what it was like.
Yeah, it was very awesome. They've added a lot of new stuff around campus, on campus. So it's cool to see how all that changed. And then it's cool to see how, especially the students, the students at those bigger schools, just the way that they bring the energy and everything. It's cool to see that there hasn't been any drop off whatsoever.
That's gotta be. What's it like for you too? Like when you run into former classmates or whatever, and they're like, "Hey, what are you up to? What are you doing?" And you're like, "Well, I'm a sportsbook manager." Like they've got to do a double take on that and be like, "Well, what all does that entail?
Yes, it's very rare that I introduce myself or, catch up with someone and there isn't a follow-up question to what do you do?
Yeah.
There's always a second or third or 10th question afterwards.
And they're like, hey, Justin, what do you think about this? What are your thoughts on this number?
Yeah, here and there. I'll get some questions, especially going into, big games like the Super Bowl. Like, well, who do you like? I want to know before I place a bet, and, I'll give them some info here and there. But again, just because I work here doesn't mean I know everything.
No, that's that's the crazy thing about sports is that even when there are times where you're like you believe and it sure looks like you're on the right side and the game can go the other way.
Yeah,
it could be a fumble, it could be a turnover, and all of a sudden you're like, oh no.
Right.
Like I bet you there are a lot of Bills bettors who felt like they were on the right side last week.
Correct.
And they just couldn't
absolutely
get over the hump.
I agree.
There.
And there are every week there's a game or two that's like that that team was in control 59.5 minutes of the game and just came out on the wrong side. All
right, Justin Ballinger, the sportsbook manager here at Spirit Mountain Casino. The Super Big Game coming up a week from Sunday, February 9th. They are going to have the Super Big Game party here at Spirit Mountain Casino. You can get tickets at the Coyote Club desk. Food and beverage, everything will be taken care of for you throughout the game, and you can come down. Your place to bet on college sports, of course, Spirit Mountain Casino, but they'll have all the props up by Monday morning. Everything will be good to go, and you can get all your wagers in.
Correct. Everything good to go by Monday morning.
Dude, Justin, man, thanks for coming by. I get people like, hey, you need to get that Justin guy back on.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, keep on coming by. We'll keep doing it.
All right, Justin Ballinger, Spirit Mountain Casino. We'll keep things rolling here on the Rip City Drive. Brad Botkin will stop by at 5:20 to talk hoop, and I'll give you some of the details on that Jason Quick story at 4:20 here on the Rip City Drive. That was awesome. I've got, he just emailed me the, so I'm going to forward you the email right now. This is every single one you did. Awesome. I appreciate it. All right, big thanks to my man Justin Ballinger, Spirit Mountain Casino. The current line on the Super Bowl down here, the total's been set at 49, and the Chiefs right now are 1.5-point favorite, and that number has been pretty static throughout the course of the week. So we'll see how things change as we get closer to the big game coming up a week from Sunday. But I love this matchup, Chiefs and Eagles, and I'm excited about this. In fact, who was it? Julian Edelman, who was on Fox Sports Radio. He was asked what Patrick Mahomes has to do to surpass Tom Brady. I mean, where are you at on this? Do you think Tom Brady's the best of all time? Is it somebody else? Do you think Patrick Mahomes has already surpassed him? I mentioned this earlier in the week that Mahomes he's the best that I've seen. And I know that Brady's got more, but, Patrick Mahomes, he's the perfect combination of everything you want in a quarterback. And Julian Edelman talked about what Mahomes has to do to surpass Tom Brady. And, of course, Edelman was teammates with Tom and won 3 Super Bowls with him.
He just got to do it for a long time. I mean, he's on pace. This is remarkable. If he goes out and does 3 in a row in a salary cap era, you can't say much. I'm as big as a Tom Brady guy as there is. And what the only difference is the longevity. Tom had like 3 careers. He just so happened to only get two runs at those Super Bowl runs. Patrick's been doing that his whole career. But it'll be interesting for me to see the next chapter of Patrick Mahomes when some sort of adversity comes along. Some player, Travis retired. He's going to be playing way longer after Travis. Chris Jones, when he departures, he's going to be there by himself. Will he be able to retool and find guys to help him go out and win, which that's what Tom had to do, and it took him 10 years to do that to get to the next one. So, it's pretty crazy that if you really think about it, they've had a little bit of adversity with guys that may not be cornerstone players, but like the stuff that we went through to see Tom be able to compartmentalize. I mean, we had murders, we had back surgeries, we had Gates, and he was still able to go out and win football games. So that's like the next step for me to see with Patrick Mahomes, this next part of his career when he doesn't have the whole band together.
All right, there's Julian Edelman. Yeah, you just got to continue to play and do it over the course of a long period of time. It's just amazing already. 7 consecutive AFC title games, and now he's got a chance to do something that Tom has never done, or anyone for that fact, and that's win 3 straight Super Bowls. So he is well on his way. I guess what I do is I look at the entire package. My only knock on Tom Brady when it comes to quarterbacking is that he's not my style of quarterback. Tom Brady's awesome, and I respect him a great deal. And, the accuracy, his movement in the pocket, the way he can manipulate the game from the pocket, he's great. But for me, and it's probably because I grew up a John Elway fan, I like guys who are more mobile. I like guys who can take off and pick up first downs with their legs when the play that was drawn up doesn't go the way that it's supposed to. I like that type of flexibility in my quarterback. And that's what Patrick Mahomes brings. He can win the game from the pocket. He can manipulate the defense from the pocket. He's got a great understanding of defenses. But in those moments where things break down, he can really take off and do good things. And we saw it in this game Sunday against the Bills. 11 rushes, 43 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So they utilize his legs as a weapon in that game to take advantage of some opportunities in that Bills defense. The arm strength is there, the mobility, the smarts, the leadership, the charisma. I mean, he's right there. So I guess at that point, whether it's Brady or Mahomes, or you just kind of pick the guy that works best for you. They're both great. But Mahomes, to me, is the combination, everything that you would want. And I mentioned this the other day, but, like the movie Weird Science, where the 2 dudes, put the bras on their head and they created the perfect woman who turned out to be Kelly LeBrock. She was fabulous in that movie. If we were all to get together and put bras on our domes and try to go into the lab and create the perfect quarterback, it wouldn't come out like Kelly LeBrock. It would come out like Patrick Mahomes. And it would come out like Patrick Mahomes, not even Tom Brady. It would come out like Mahomes because it would be the best of everything. You'd want to have strong arm, check. You would want to have brains, check. You would want to have the mobility with the legs and everything, check, check, check. Everything you need in a quarterback, he's got. So if we were doing a Weird Science quarterback edition, it would not be Kelly LeBrock that would pop out for you. It would be Patrick Mahomes. Or at least that's how I see it. and it pains me to say that because there are certain athletes I love John Elway, but after seeing Patrick Mahomes from early in his career up until now, like he truly is the perfect combination. A lot of respect for him. And he's also fortunate, like a lot of players, he's very fortunate to be in a position to where he's been able to have Andy Reid as coach because all of these great ideas, and he's finally got the perfect quarterback to be able to carry out all of those different desires. On the football field, there's nothing he can't draw up or come up in his creative mind that he can hand to Patrick Mahomes and Mahomes can't execute. That's got to be such a great freedom as a play caller to know that no matter what you scheme up, the guy that you have running your offense is going to be able to pull it off with perfection. That's really what it comes down to, perfection. So we'll see how things shake out. But I do agree with Justin. The Eagles do have the best roster in football. Everyone we've talked to and asked that question to, everyone agrees that the Eagles, it's really not even a debate. They have the best roster from top down. They are great at the line of scrimmage. They have stars on both sides of the football. But the problem is if it becomes a one-score game, which it most likely will, who are you going to trust? Sirianni and Hurts or Reid and Mahomes? And that's where the dilemma really exists in my mind when it comes to the matchup. All right, we'll keep things rolling. We will get into the details on Tamani Kamara and Jason Quick's piece in The Athletic on him. It's terrific. It's always nice when you hear players on your own team talk about you or your own coach, but what's really cool is when you get the nitty-gritty from opponents who have to compete against you, who don't have to say things nice things about you, but you find out the real deal. So we'll get into that as well. And then Brad Botkin talking hoop. CBS Sports coming up at 5:20. Chad doing live here at Spirit Mountain Casino. You got the Rip City Drive. Want a piece of my heart. Come on, baby, let's go. Hey, what's going on, my friends? It's now 4 o'clock. Chad here. Trailblazers, great performance last night in their 119-90 victory over the Orlando Magic. Shaedon Sharpe with 23 points on 9 of 14 shooting. Scoot Henderson, a big night, 23 points and 7 assists. He got the start with Grant out of action. Coach Billups gave a lot of props to Scoot following the game.
Against such an elite defensive team. And I just thought he picked his spots great, He knocked down his shots, but his playmaking was good. His defense was good. He was scrappy out there. He was good. It was just a great floor game the entire way through for Scoot.
And their defense, epic. 29 points off turnovers for the Trailblazers. 7-game homestand will continue tomorrow. The Phoenix Suns will be in town. Tip-off from Moda at 7. Chris Burkhart will have Blazer Game Day at 5 on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio, or on the iHeartRadio app. Super Bowl 59 coming up a week from Sunday down in New Orleans. The Chiefs a 1.5-point favorite over the Eagles. All right, this song here reminds me of, I think I was probably 9 years old, and we were moving from Oklahoma to Colorado. And I lived in Oklahoma for the first 9 years of my life, and I grew up just outside of Tulsa. And most of my family, also from Oklahoma, my mom and dad were born and grew up in a small town of Ponca City, Oklahoma, which is not too far from Wichita, Kansas. That's where my mom's parents were, my grandma and grandpa. And that's my grandpa who had ALS. His name was Don. And then my nana and papa also, lived in Ponca City, Oklahoma. That's where they grew up and went to school. My papa worked at the Conoco refinery there. And my nana did a bunch of odd jobs. My Uncle Roy was a donut maker. And he got in with the guy who had created the Daylight donut flour. And my Uncle Roy had a donut shop for, many decades in town. The donut shop is still there. It's owned and operated by somebody different now. But my dad used to work for Uncle Roy when he was younger. He would, pick up donuts and deliver them on his bike and sell them door to door. And then the women, when the guys had to go to war, they ran the shop and made donuts and did everything. And my Uncle Roy was great. He used to make all the donuts by hand, right? And you would make them, you would put all of the ingredients together, and then you would stand over the hot grease and make the donuts and did everything by hand. And I'll never forget the first time we went into a Krispy Kreme as a family back in the day. And my Uncle Roy, before he passed away, he walked in, and you know how I think a lot of them, I haven't been into Krispy Kreme in years, but you walk in, they've got the clear glass, and you're looking through, and you can see the donut making machine and the donuts being made and dropped into the grease and cooked, and they go through the conveyor belt, and they get iced and everything. The look in his eyes when he saw what was taking place after 30 years of making donuts bare hands with his own bare hands, he couldn't believe it. Like, it flipped his dome, and he couldn't believe how good they were considering it was a machine. So that was kind of a interesting process. Well, anyways, I grew up in Oklahoma. I lived just outside of Tulsa, and I've talked about the time I had out there. I loved it out in the country. I wish that I would have respected it maybe a little bit more. It was just nice to have the freedom to be able to roam around and do whatever we wanted to do. And I had 20 acres that I had access to that I could run around on. I had the pond, which was my favorite place, so I could go down there and fish and hunt bullfrogs for frog legs. We had chickens. We had some ducks. I had my golden retriever, Nikki, and, my cat, Tiger, and my horse, Charlie. And just the freedom to be able to say, hey, Mom, I'm going to go play. And there was no restrictions on don't go here, don't go there, don't do this. Like, I would climb trees and do a bunch of crazy stuff. And, then you move away from that. And moving away from a place that you're used to in the first 9 years of your life, it was very scary as a youngster to move to a new place, a new surrounding, and a new school and try to make new friends. That was a horrifying experience. And I don't know if I ever really got settled, but my aunt and uncle, Elaine and Gordon, lived in Denver at the time. They still live in Colorado, down in Colorado Springs, but my cousins were there, and that helped with the process. But we were there for 3 years before we moved out to the Northwest. But those moves as a youngster, when you're trying to find your way through school and figure out some way to have an identity and what you're all about and everything, when you're insecure, it's brutal. So I remember those days. But that song was playing on the radio. It was a big hit for Madonna when we were going through that process. The crazy part is, too, I don't know, you ever seen your dad cry? Like, I know many of you, especially the ones who are my age, you may have never seen your dad cry. And my dad is, he's a wonderful man. My father, I'm glad that, over time, obviously he was my dad, but over time we've become friends, and I just enjoy his company and spending time with my dad and try to ask him questions and learn from him because he's a really smart guy. And, my dad has always been a man with, convictions, and, he's always walked the straight and narrow. And I think when I was younger, I fought against that a little bit because I had friends whose dads who I thought were really cool, who were a little more loose on different things that we could do or whatever. And so I never maybe understood and appreciated my father the way that I should have now that I do, that I'm older. But my dad was terrific. But I remember when we moved from Tulsa, he had grown up there. I can't remember how old he was when we moved away from there, but he worked there for the Corps of Engineers at the Williams Center, which is now the BOK Center there in Tulsa. It's the biggest skyscraper. I think it was made by the same company that built the Twin Towers in New York City. But he worked there at the Williams Center, and he had graduated from college. He went to Oklahoma State. I think he got his master's, I think, in forestry. Well, anyways, when he graduated and was done with school at Oklahoma State, the Corps was hiring, and so he and his best friend Dick, they went and got jobs with the Corps of Engineers, and so he was working with his best friend. We lived in a cul-de-sac before my dad built the country house, which was right next to his best friend, and I lived right next to my best friend, and so it was very close knit. When you grow up in an area like that, there's not as many people around. It's not a big city. It's a small town, so everyone knows everyone. But my dad was connected to Oklahoma for his entire life. And so I remember, it's weird how you have certain images from when you were younger, and I don't remember everything from when I was 9 years old, but I remember when we made the move and we had everything packed up. We had gone into Tulsa and my dad's last day of work, and my mom was in the car, my brother was in the car, and as we're pulling outside of the city and making our journey up the highway, at the very beginning steps of our move to Colorado, I just remember my dad, he tried to hide it, but he was in tears. And my mom was trying to comfort him as he was driving down the highway. But that was the first time and really the only time I've ever seen my dad, really break down with tears. And so that stuck with me. And I realize now that, and I've asked him about it before, after that, but he was just missing. He was moving away from everything he knew for the very first time. And it was hard for me because I was young and had no idea what was going on, and I had to make new friends at school or whatever. But then I realized, it was tough on my dad as well. Moving away from mom and dad, who were my nana and papa, moving away from family for the first time, his best friends. So I wasn't the only one going through trauma, but my parents, too, they uprooted and went to a brand new place and had to learn. But those images, that's why with music it's so great, because you can hear a song and it takes you back to a time and place. And that song reminds me of the move, and then I remember the emotion, that my dad experienced in that moment. But I'm glad now, looking back, that, you not everyone has this opportunity, but at least I've been able to experience some different places and live in different areas and be at different parts of the country, so you can have a feel for everything. I mean, there's parts of everywhere that I've lived that I enjoy. Like Oklahoma is always going to be home to me, and I like the southern hospitality and the friendliness amongst the people. I like the countryside and less people and less crowds, less traffic. It's nice. I don't miss the extreme summers. And, we lived out in the country. My dad, he got us a swimming pool. It was above the ground pool, so it was, I'm not going to call it a ghetto swimming pool, but it wasn't like it was a nice pool. And, we sat down and had one of those family meetings, and, we had a choice. We could go on vacation to Branson, Missouri, and go to Silver Dollar City, or we could get the swimming pool. And we chose Branson because we wanted to go to Silver Dollar City. Well, we ended up getting the swimming pool, too. I don't know how my mom talked him into that one, but he did. And the pool was nice, man, because we lived out in the country, so when it was hotter than H-double hockey sticks with the humidity. So I'd be running around playing with Charlie and the animals, or climbing trees, or going down fishing, and you run up to the house and it was hot. I could just strip naked and go skinny dipping in the pool and just bail in. It was great. There's no one around. You're not going to offend anybody, and it was great. So I miss those days. But, I don't know. It's the songs, the music, you think about things. But, my parents are getting older now. And I would say, I don't know if it's a fear, but you realize now, like, my parents are slowing down. Like, it's not going to be the same, So, and I know there are a lot of people out there that have lost their parents or loved ones. And, as you get older, you realize, like, it's not, there's only a period of time. You got to enjoy the relationships while you have them. So there you have it. A lot of different things I want to get into. Coming up here in a couple of minutes, so we'll dive into this piece from Jason Quick. He did something very unique. He went around to talk to opposing players and go into the locker rooms. He wanted to get their take on Toumani Camara, who is, it's pretty clear. Like, when you watch Toumani, like, maybe you see this. I would imagine you do. But I've noticed this ever since last year when he started playing. Guys that he's defending, they react to Toumani because he irritates them. And he's an irritant. Now, he's not an irritant like Bill Laimbeer, who takes cheap shots and says crazy stuff, or Dennis Rodman, who tries to annoy you with his antics. He's an irritant like that, but he does it in different ways. He's an irritant because he competes for 48 minutes. He's an irritant because he doesn't let up defensively. He's an irritant because he'll make you look bad. If you don't bring your A game and he's defending you with his length and his physicality, he will make you look foolish. And NBA players are very proud guys. Some of them have fairly large egos. They don't like to be made foolish out there on the basketball floor, but Toumani does it on a regular basis because that's how he rolls, because of his physicality and the way he operates. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Toumani Camara, but Quick got takes from different players in the opposing locker room. Jamal Murray is one, Tyrese Maxey. They're different guys. So I want to go through it just to give you an idea of what Toumani Camara is all about. Because coming off of last night's game, I haven't been this excited about Trailblazer basketball in a few years now, and that's because not because of the win, although it was great to see them dominate, but because they're doing it with their youth. And the reason why you go through a rebuilding process is to get your hands on young players who can perform, and they've got 5 of those guys now. And that's exciting to me. And Toumani Camara and Deni Avdija are leading the charge right now. Two-way players who get after it on both ends. And those are the type of guys I prefer. Like, if I have a choice, I'm going to choose guys who are going to do it on both ends. Now, we're talking about music that takes you back to a time and place. This song, every time I hear it, and I love this song, Family Man from Hall & Oates, this song is the reason my mom took my H2O album and broke it and threw it away. She confiscated my H2O album when I was young because she thought this song was inappropriate. And, of course, I'm young. What do I know? I had no idea it was talking about, some type of an affair or maybe women of the night. I didn't even know what that was about. I just know it sounded really cool. But my mom's like, this is inappropriate, clip, and then the album was gone. And so that's when I learned the art of having to be very careful with how I brought certain things into the house so I could hide it in my bedroom. The things boys will do. All right, we'll come back. We'll dive into this. Jason Quick on Toumani Camara. I'll give you some insight to what others around the league think about his defensive prowess. You can reach out to me, 503-248-0620. I'm live here at Spirit Mountain Casino. I'm chilling on a Friday here. You got the Rip City Drive. Thank you, Michael. Okay. Gosh. All right, Rip City Drive. This is Weird Al Yankovic. You know, Shacker and I were just talking about, I think it's pretty cool back in the day how, you know, these other artists, when Weird Al would call, they would always green light his project ideas because they knew he was going to do good work with their music. Like a surgeon. Eat It and Fat are amazing. It truly is. Weird Al Yankovic's a cool dude. I mean, he's got a lot of talent. Really appreciate Weird Al. All right, you can reach out, 503-248-0620. That's your telephone number. I'm here at Spirit Mountain Casino getting ready for Escape to Paradise, which is coming up at 7:15, and I enjoyed the sunshine while it lasted. I'm not complaining about the rain today. I had to pull out the umbrella today. I'm not going to complain because we've been fortunate to have a lot of blue skies and sunshiny days in the month of January. Now, I am concerned that we could be looking at snow here in the near future. And that's what it looks like. Those are some of the reports that we're seeing, and I hope that's not the case. I got stuck for about 4 hours in the middle of the night right as I was trying to get on the 205 bridge. I can't remember. Was that last year? Was it the year before? It was either last year or 2 years ago when we had the snow and the ice, and I was trying to get home, and 205 was a complete disaster. Everything was good coming home from the station, trying to get back to the Couve right up until the time I got to Airport Way right before the bridge, and nothing but lights. And I was in my car for 4 hours, running the car, heater on, and I was watching Netflix on my telephone. And then finally, there started to be some movement. There was like multiple stalled semis on the bridge, and then finally we were able to work our way around on the, the median or the side, on the shoulder, and I was able to pick my way through and get home. But that was brutal, absolutely brutal. Thank goodness I had a full tank of gas. Yeah, that's something my dad's always reminded me ever since I was young. He's like, hey, the weather's going to be bad out there. Make sure you get a full tank of gas. You don't want to get stranded and freeze your balls off. No problem, Dad. I'm on it. I got you. All right, I want to dive into this. I love this. Jason Quick, you got to give him some props on this. He did a good job of, digging in and getting a really good perspective on Toumani Camara. Because Toumani Camara is a unique player from the standpoint that he is a tenacious defender. And there aren't too many guys like this in the league. There's a lot of good players in the NBA, but how many guys really want to grind and defend and get after it night after night after night? There are some, and there are some that will defend hard for stretches, but there are a few guys like Toumani that's willing to do it for an entire 48 and pick you up full court and get up in your grill and be physical and mix it up out there too. And like Toumani got popped in the grill last night, like right around mid-court, and Toumani's not soft, so he doesn't. When he reacts with agony, he got popped, and they showed it on the big screen. You could tell he got hit. He just got racked in the face, and I'm like, oh. But that's just, he wants that. He's one of those weird guys that he enjoys contact, he enjoys confrontation, and he enjoys the physicality of playing the game of basketball, and that's what makes him so cool. And I now believe after watching Toumani that these guys that play crappy defense in the NBA. There might be a few that even if they tried their hardest and gave a great effort, that they're not going to be able to get the job done because they lack size or athleticism. But for the majority of guys, they just don't want to pay the price. That's what I think. Toumani pays a price. And he's not a small guy, so, it takes a lot of energy for that guy to do what he does. But he pays a price, and, man, he's a difference maker. And Denny Avdia is the same way. Both those guys, the length, the willingness to defend, and when they're on the floor together, it is a thing of joy. All right, so Quick put this piece together in The Athletic on Toumani when he went to talk to players in the opposing locker room. And Quick writes, Tyrese Maxey stopped the question before it was finished, a wide smile accompanying his interjection. Quote, before you even get going, let me tell you about tonight, Maxey said. And Quick writes, the question was about Trailblazers forward Toumani Camara and his defensive prowess. Maxey, the point guard for the Sixers, had just spent a night being guarded by Camara, and the experience left an impression. And it started before the opening tip. Quote, what did he say? It was like, hey, Can you play if I pick you up full court? Maxey said wide-eyed. Kamara's question was so brash, so bold, and so unexpected that Maxey couldn't help but chuckle. After all, this was Kamara, a second-round draft pick in his second season, taking on an all-star. Quote, the ball would go through the net, and he would try to deny me and pick me up the whole game. Someone who is that size and who can pick you up full court and is that relentless, kudos to him, man. That's not an easy task. Now, how much of a compliment is that from a player like Tyrese Maxey who can wear you out? That is a darn good ball player with a good offensive game. He can shoot. He's got range. Maxey's a baller. Quote, the ball would go through the net, and he would try to deny me and pick me up the whole game. Someone who is that size and who can pick you up full court and is that relentless, kudos to him, man. That's not an easy task. Now that, to me, is an incredible compliment for Toumani Camara. When you have a great offensive player and a big-time player in his own right, taking time to recognize what you do as a player. Quick went on and said the scene with Maxey is one from a collection of opponents interviewed by The Athletic over the past month about Camara and his defense. The responses were as varied as they were telling. Brooklyn's Ben Simmons detailed a mini confrontation. Denver's Jamal Murray sat silent, stewing for several seconds before begrudgingly giving an answer. San Antonio's Jeremy Sochan couldn't contain his admiration, and the Clippers' Norman Powell was still trying to figure out how Camara came out of nowhere to block his dunk attempt. That is absolutely terrific. Quick went on to write, it was late in the game, long after Camara boldly asked Maxey if he was ready for a full night of 94 feet pressure when the two had another exchange. Quote, there was a moment where I thought he was complaining to the ref about me, Camara remembered. So I went up to him and I asked him, oh, are you complaining about my defense? Maxey assured him that that was not the case. Quote, I told him, nah, you can come play with us anytime you want. You can come do this on our team anytime you want. I was messing with him. Like, look at you, playing full court all game. You can come play with us anytime. See, again, that's ultimate respect from Maxey. Quick went on. He said, before the Brooklyn Nets arrived in Portland, Ben Simmons said Camara was already on his radar because he noticed Camara led the NBA in charges drawn going into that game. Quote, when you hear about somebody taking charges, you typically know they are a good defender and have good sense. So I was aware of that. Quick went on to say, but it wasn't until the first half when Simmons discovered there is more to Kamara's game than drawing charges. He has also developed some tricks of the trade. While lined up next to each other during a free throw, Camara grabbed the wrist of Simmons. It irritated the 9-year vet, who immediately gave Camara a shove. Quote, it was one of those things where he was trying to get under my skin and bother me. And he did it a little bit. But I also know the game. I know that's something I would do, so I like that. I like someone who is going to take that challenge against an older player like myself and try to frustrate me. Camara said grabbing Simmons' wrist was a calculated move. Quote, as a grown man, nobody likes being grabbed or having someone be physical and stuff like that. But as a defender, it's something you have to do sometimes. I saw that he was frustrated, and I have to take advantage of those moments. Gosh, I love that. And he's right. Because if you're a grown man playing basketball and someone's touching you or clutching you or grabbing you, it irritates you. But Camara does it anyways because he knows he's a good defender. He's got to do that sometimes. Quick went on to say that Simmons joined a growing list of players Camara has upset throughout his season and a half off the court. Camara is polite, gentle, smiles easily, and mostly keeps to himself, but on the court, stone-faced and turns into an irritant. Simmons said he took note of the Jekyll and Hyde transformation. Quote, when we came down later for another free throw, I saw that he's a nice guy. He said, yo, you didn't have to shove me. And I said, you didn't have to grab me. We both had a laugh about it. He seems like a really good kid. I like that. See, you know, when you play hard and you're willing to defend and you compete, even though you may irritate the other guy, they'll learn to respect you for it. And the reason why I think the respect is important, that, you know, it takes time in the NBA as a young player, whether you're a shot blocker like Donovan Clingan or a hard-nosed defender like Toumani Camara, there's a bit of a transition because the officials don't know who you are yet. And so you've got to go out there and earn the respect of the officials so they understand, like, oh, Toumani Camara is a good defender, and then they'll allow you to get away with more, which is great. Now, Quick went on to say that against the Nets, Kamara had 23 points, 2 blocks, 2 steals, and a drawn charge. Although the Blazers lost by 18, the Nets took notice. Quote, the one thing I can say is he plays extremely hard on every possession, and the coaches, we can tell. Nets coach Jody Fernandez said, he picks up full court, uses his legs, embraces defense, and that's a superpower. I don't know the kid, but I think that the superpower of embracing defense is his. See, that is, again, the ultimate compliment from a coach. I love that. He picks up full court, uses his leg, embraces defense, and that's a superpower. Why? Because most guys in the NBA, not only do they not have the same type of ability that Kamara does, but he's willing to do it for an entire game. Man, Coach Fernandez says that's a superpower. Quick went on to say that Maxey said he puts Kamara's defense in the same category as Dyson Daniels from Atlanta and Jaden McDaniels of Minnesota. Quote, those are the type of guys where the league is going. Guys who can guard multiple positions and do it very well. It's pretty awesome. Simmons, who finished second in the voting for Defensive Player of the Year after the 2021 season, said he welcomes seeing a young player value defense. Quote, you've got to want to be one of those guys. You've got to want to take the challenge every night, and he's been doing that. I think that is one thing that the game misses a lot. Well, there's no question about that. Guys who want to play defense and guard. So when we see those guys who take those challenges, a lot of respect to them because it's not easy. Now, Norman Powell, former Trailblazer, who's now with the Clippers, was at the top of the three-point arc when he saw nothing but space. The Blazers' defense, clogged by a screen from L.A. center Zubac, had rolled out a red carpet runway for an uncontested dunk. Or so Powell thought, Quick writes. As Powell beelined toward the basket and gathered himself for a tomahawk jam, he experienced one of the defensive traits that makes Kamara stand out. Quote, he doesn't give up, Powell said. When Powell started his acceleration at the top of the three-point arc and headed towards the basket, Kamara was guarding James Harden out by the three-point line on the left wing. He was out of the picture. And Quick continues as Zubac erased Sharp with a screen, and DeAndre Ayton was unable to react in time. Powell was thinking highlight reel. Instead, he was on the wrong end of the highlight. Kamara came all the way from the three-point line on the weak side to meet Powell at the rim and block his shot. Quote, it was almost an impossible play for him to make in terms of where he came from to go after it. That's what Billups said. Most people would just watch that play and take it out and run down the court, except for Tamani. I love that.
Zubac played it really well, but DA still got the ball.
Oh, Kamara rejects, rebukes, and stamps that one, taking it away from Powell in midair.
Yeah, I love that. He made the play that most guys wouldn't even attempt to make, according to Coach Billups. Billups went on to say, quote, most people are scared to get dunked on, except him. It was a courageous play and just an incredible effort, but that's who he is and what we've come to depend on. Gosh, I love that. Now, Powell, who played for the Blazers, said he heard of Kamara's defense through texting with Blazers guard Anthony Simons and catching the Blazers on League Pass. Quote, I still watched him from afar, and when he got here, I thought he had a lot of potential because of his body frame. And, yeah, he plays hard. He came weak side and blocked that dunk. So there you go. That's a lot of respect from Norman Powell, who's a darn good basketball player. Powell said Kamara's dedication to defense reminded him of his own start in Toronto when he had to carve out a defensive niche on a team with noted scorers in DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry. Quote, a lot of guys who come into the league want to score and have their name in the paper and articles written, but a lot of teams already have their guys for that role. When I came in, I knew I had to play defense, even though I probably didn't. I wanted to score, but that was the road given to me, and the same with him. He's embraced it, and he's doing a great job. Gosh, I love that so much. It goes back to what I've always talked about. Players a lot of times have short careers because they don't understand what they do best and how they can best serve their team. And therefore, they're too busy worrying about their touches and trying to showcase their offensive talent. And if you can't do what the team needs you to do to help them win, that's going to be a problem. Now, according to Quick, Jamal Murray from the Nuggets sat in front of his locker and listened to a question about Kamara. Quote, who? He asked. Oh, are you talking about number 33? See, that right there is a sign of respect, too. It doesn't know his name, but he's like, oh, number 33. See, he's taking note of the defense because number 33 is a problem. Quick says he was seething. His Nuggets, having just lost to the Blazers 126-124, in part because of Kamara's 14 points, 8 rebounds, 3 steals, and charges drawn against Jokic and Michael Porter Jr. throughout the night. Kamara guarded everyone from Murray at point guard to Jokic at center. When the question continued asking what makes Kamara an effective defender, Murray sat in silence, mulling an answer for 1, 2, maybe 4 to 5 seconds. Quote, "I think I'm too competitive to answer that question," Murray said. Murray had 24 points and 10 assists, so it wasn't like he was taken out of the game, but it was clear the man he knew only by number and not by name had left some type of imprint. Eventually, he did answer and shared what he thought made Kamara unique. Quote, "How old is he? Is he like in his second year?" Murray asked. "Yeah, I think he's going to be solid, man. He reminds me of Matisse Thybulle. Same kind of length, same kind of speed. He gets into your stuff, and he just tries to make it hard for you all game." Gosh, that's respect. Same kind of length, same kind of speed as Thybulle. He gets into your stuff and just tries to make it hard for you all game. Now, how long has it been since we've had guys talking about Trailblazers like that? Quick went on to say if Murray wasn't sure about specifics on Kamara, the Nuggets coaching staff was. Assistant coach David Adelman, son of Rick, said Kamara's physicality and activity practically jumped off the videotape. Quote, "He is extremely, extremely impressive," Adelman said. "I think in today's NBA, with positionless basketball, he has the ability to actually guard point guard through center and do it at a really high level. There's more respect." Adelman said he noticed a difference in Kamara as he watched the film on the Blazers near the end of his rookie season last year. Quote, "He really started to stand out in a lot of different ways, and you can tell their coaching staff trusting him to do things that usually you save for veteran defensive players by allowing him to be creative out there and use all of his attributes. You could see him getting his confidence." Billups went on to say, quote, "We had to diversify him. Even though he is so special on the ball, there were nights where the point guard isn't the guy I wanted to impact. So I told him, I want you to be able to guard everybody, not just point guards." So he was happy about it. I was making him relieve the pressure on the ball, and on some nights I needed him to take somebody else out of the game for us. A lot of defenders out there have a specialty in guarding a certain position. I don't want that for him. He's so much better than that. That's amazing. A quick one on to say that another key moment in Kamara's emergence as a defender happened behind the scenes. Before games last season, Billups said he would meet with the refs and educate them on Kamara's defensive skills. See, this goes back to letting the officials know what he can do so he gets the respect of the officials. Billups said, quote, "Last year the refs were calling so many fouls on him, so I went up to them and said, this is going to be one of the best defenders in the league in a very short amount of time. You all have to get used to him, just like he has to get used to you all." And 30 to 40 games in, they started to call less fouls. There you go. I mean, that's the beauty of it. Now, Adelman went on to say, quote, "We tell our guys don't expect to call. The refs are going to not going to call everything. And Kamara is one of those guys that's going to toe that line a little bit. But again, that's how the league is and has always been like that. If you foul every play, they won't call it every time. That's not to say he's doing that, but he definitely plays with physical mindset up and down the court. Gosh, I love that. Now, Jeremy Sochan of the Spurs said, quote, "He's a dog for real. I just love the way he picks up full court. He doesn't give an F who he is guarding. He just wants to play defense, and you really don't see that often here in the NBA anymore." That's a good compliment, too. He doesn't give an F. There you go. That's some insight on the defensive prowess of Toumani Camara, and that's why every team in the NBA is making phone calls about his availability. And, of course, he's not available. He's an untouchable. The Blazers have found themselves a gem in Toumani Camara. You know, I think we all know that Toumani Camara can absolutely be a key piece of a championship team. And here's the bright side. His defense is getting better, but so is his offensive game. The three-point shot, he can put the ball on the floor. And we saw him in transition last night do a lot of different things. He's a damn good ball player. All right, we'll keep things rolling here. We'll talk ball with Brad Bakken coming up at 5:20. Hope you're enjoying your Friday. Chad Doing here, Rip City Drive. Oh, my goodness. I just took a sip of cold coffee. Isn't it amazing how certain things, at the proper temperature, it's wonderful, but at the wrong temperature, it makes you gag. Ugh. Boy, my chiropractor, he is the absolute man. He lets me come over to his house, and he adjusts me there at his crib. His name is Mitch. He's like a wizard. And what I love about Mitch is that not only does he adjust me, but he's got all these different things. He makes his own beef jerky, which is amazing. He's got his own chicken, so he gives me free eggs. And he's always got different things going on. But he's a unique guy. He's one of those guys who, he can build things. He's got this massive garden with all these beautiful vegetables that he has during the spring and summertime. And the eggs are fabulous. I can't believe how much better fresh eggs are compared to the ones you buy in the store. And he gave me a dozen today after I saw him before I made the trek down here. I mean, that saved me like $10. Thank you, Mitch. I appreciate that. But fresh is different. I used to do that when I was younger. My mom would be like, well, if you want breakfast, go get eggs. And I'd have to go out in the coop and get the eggs. I mean, I have to contend with Charlie the rooster, who would get really ticked off. I mean, I didn't know what flogging was until I ran into Charlie. You turn your back on Charlie when you stepped in the chicken coop, and he would jump on your back and try to peck you. And I did not appreciate that. I did see my dad drop kick Charlie once because Charlie tried to attack him for being in the coop. Charlie was ticked, and my dad was like, look, I've talked to you about this before, and if you continue to do that, I'm going to kick you. And so my dad kicked Charlie one day. I don't think that stopped Charlie from being Charlie, but it was just funny to see my dad, who's normally so calm, react with irritation like that. He did. My horse, Charlie, gave my dad a little kick in the thigh once and gave him a bruise, too, because Charlie was a very stubborn horse, and if you didn't do things his way, he would get mad, too. So I had to be very gentle with Charlie with sugar cubes. And he had the big salt block, too. It was funny that he had this massive salt block in his barn, and he would lick that thing, like it was a sucker. It was like, wow. But he loved the sugar cubes. We kept those little C&H sugar cubes out in the barn, and if I wanted to saddle them up or whatever, I had to butter them up with the sugar cubes and stuff, which is pretty funny. Trailblazers got the win last night. We just heard from Quick. That was a great piece by Quick. He's done a lot of good work, but that piece on Kamara was great. I love hearing from other players in the league share their thoughts on Toumani Camara. And eventually maybe we'll get a piece on Deni Avdija, in terms of the way they play. My man Tony out in Boring hit me up with a message, and he said, 100% agree with your feelings after last night's game. Just imagine 25-26 starting five of Clingan, Cooper, Flagg, Camara, Sharp, and Scoot, with Deni as a sixth man. If we don't get Flagg, plug in Deni. Need to move Grant, Ayton, and Simons. That is correct. In regards to the movement of those particular players, Grant, Ayton, and Simons, I do think that's something that the Blazers would like to do. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't expect anything to happen. I don't expect too much to happen around the league before the deadline. Not just with the Trailblazers, but with anyone, because from what I'm hearing, that it's going to be very difficult for teams to move contracts with big numbers on it. So when you get over the $20 million, you get up at around $30 million, it's going to be hard to move those type of players here at the deadline. A little more restrictive, and based on what I've heard, that not just the Blazers, but all the teams around the NBA very concerned about the second apron and the impact it's going to have financially. But come summertime, when there's more flexibility, I would expect the Blazers to make moves. The time is now. They've got to clear out some space for the young guys as they continue to move forward and build. And then, of course, this will be the final year of Chauncey Billups, and then Joe Cronin will get a chance to hire his very own head coach. People may forget, but, Billups was not a Cronin hire. That was a Neil Olshey hire, and I'm sure every GM would like to have the opportunity to hire their own coach. And that's really what it's all about. So we'll see how things shake out there. But I don't expect anything major to happen. From what I've been told, or what I continue to hear, is that if a player is moved by the Blazers before the deadline, which is coming up here in about a week, that the most likely figure would be Jeremy Grant. So, but again, big number, second apron, teams still trying to get a feel for things and how things are going to play out and the financial ramifications. So, there's no guarantee that something's going to happen. But again, I'm less concerned about that because I believe it will happen if not by the deadline, by summertime. But I'm more excited about, what Tony just referenced, the young guys developing, the 5 guys that we're seeing right now, in addition to what they're able to add during the course of the summertime with the draft. And then you got something to cook with. And then all of a sudden you got a young team that's playing hard, that's versatile on both ends, and continuing to improve. And then you start to see the makings of what could be. See, we're getting to that point now where you go through the difficult times, and now with the young pieces they got, now we're starting to see the picture's starting to be painted of what's coming, and that's a great thing. And I thought Scoot and Shaden last night were fabulous, truly fabulous. Scoot too. I mean, the confidence, the way he attacked the rim, his finishing last night. I know people with the team and around the organization very happy with his defense of late. We're just seeing that transition period there, and it's great. You love it. You love to see it, and especially with Shaden Sharp, he gets benched. Some guys may not respond well to that, but he's reacted very well to the circumstances and the calling of Coach Billups to say, hey, I love you, man, but we need more from you. We need more from you. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's good. You want your players to be challenged. And most pros that I've talked to, most of them like to be coached, and they're used to being coached. Some guys don't. Some guys are just, they have difficulty with change. They have difficulty with, guys changing around the routine or moving them out of the starting lineup. And some guys may get butthurt in that situation. But most pros enjoy being coached and knowing what, the coach expects of them, which is nice. But Scoot last night was terrific. Coach Bill was very pleased with what he saw from Scoot.
I thought Scoot was excellent the entire night. I thought he picked his spots very well. I talked about it before in the pregame presser. Just needing his intention to get to that basket was going to be huge against such an elite defensive team. And I just thought he picked his spots great. He knocked down his shots, but his playmaking was good. His defense was good. He was scrappy out there. He was good. It was just a great floor game the entire way through for Scoot.
Yeah, it's good. I like that. Shaden Sharp, he got into a bit of a dust-up with that clown center for the Magic, Badazzi, or however you pronounce his name. But he was acting crazy. It's like, please shut your mouth, Badazzi. But Coach Billups said he wants Shaden Sharp to be mad, and he wishes more people would irritate him so he would go off like he did last night.
I love it. I want somebody to get into it with Shaden every game. We need it. He needs it. Every time he gets upset out there, it's happened another time. I think it was Dylan Brooks at one time this year. Every time it happens, it takes him to another level. So I love a mad Shaden. We're best like that.
I love that. Coach wants him to be irritated. That's precious. And then Tamani Kamara with his defense, he's just an animal. And Coach obviously much respect for Tamani and the way he balls.
I kept moving him around today in the game, especially having no Jeremy. I put him on Paulo and Franz, and Franz started going. I put him in pressure. I put him everywhere. Went small. I just put him everywhere. His ceiling, we don't know what it could be. Defensively, he wants to be the best in the world. He really does. He took 2 charges in the first half, didn't get either one of them. And I'm on these reps all the time saying he's the best in the league. Like, how? Because he's the best. He really is. I mean, he leads the league at it. So, yeah, we don't know what his level, could stop at, but we won't know because he's going to continue. He will continue to get better and better and better.
Man, that's pretty cool that Coach was going up to the officials to let them know about Tamani. Like, hey, this guy is going to become the best defender in the NBA. You need to take notice so you stop calling fouls on him. That's pretty sweet that Coach did that. All right, we'll keep things rolling. We're going to get a little preview of the trade deadline coming up at 5:20 with Brad Bach and CBS Sports. You can reach out to me on social at Chad and Rip City, and you can call the program if you want to jump on board, 503-248-0620. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, it's now 5 o'clock. Chad here. Trailblazers 29-point win over the Magic last night. Great defensive performance and a number of different guys making game-winning plays. Shaden Sharp, 23 points on 9 of 14 shooting. Scoot Henderson, 23 points and 7 assists. The Blazers scored 29 points off of 16 forced turnovers. 7-game homestand will continue tomorrow. The Suns are going to be in town. Tip-off from Moda at 7. It's the first of 2 against Phoenix. Game 1 tomorrow. Game 2 will be on Monday. And we may play the second of a back-to-back Tuesday against the Indiana Pacers. Tip-off tomorrow night at 7. Chris Burkhardt will have Blazer Game Day live from Moda at 5. And when you're home with the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Shaden Sharp got into it with the Magic in the first half, and Coach Billups says he likes a mad Shaden.
I love it. I want somebody to get into it with Shaden every game.
Coming up next, more of the Rip City Drive. Brad Bakken at 5:20. You know, Shacker just sent me a note I had forgotten about, but Joe Montana was actually an in-studio analyst for a very short period of time with the NFL and NBC back in the day. I had forgotten about that. He had a single season, 9-game season as a studio commentator for NBC's NFL on NBC. According to the network and the press release, Montana made the decision on his own. That's probably true on more than one level. So he walked away from it. It just wasn't for him. Very interesting. You know, I was thinking back, there's been a lot of different commentators and, you know, people who have called games over the years. You know, my favorites throughout the course of time, you know, when I first started watching basketball, it was the CBS crew, Tommy Heinsohn and Dick Stockton. And I think because they were two of the very first to kind of bring me into the game, I'm huge fans. Dick Stockton's a stud. Love Dick Stockton. And Tommy Heinsohn, I always thought it was amazing, even at a young age, that they allowed Tommy Heinsohn to do network broadcasts because he loves the Celtics and is Mr. Boston Celtic, but yet he was on the network broadcast with Dick Stockton calling those NBA Finals with the Lakers and Celtics. That was fascinating to me. Now, the Nuggets television crew at the time had not Marv Albert, but Al Albert, who was terrific. So I remember him. And then obviously when I moved out to the Portland area, the Trailblazers had a great television crew and a great radio crew. Most of the early games that I watched on television were Pat Lafferty and Steve Jones. I've always been a fan of Steve Jones, but Pat Lafferty was kind of hit or miss with me. Like, he's a nice guy and he did a good job, but some of his calls were a little bit too corny for me. Obviously, I was always down with the Shawns. But the national guys at the time were still Dick Stockton. Now, he worked with different guys. Let's see here, Tommy Heinsohn, and I think it was Billy Cunningham, and then Hubie Brown. And I like Hubie Brown a lot. Some people don't. I do. I think he's great behind the microphone. I mean, he's done it for so many years. My favorite crews, you know, when the games weren't on national TV on CBS back in the day, TBS and TNT were the places to go, and they had all of the Braves broadcasters. So Pete Van Buren and, Skip Carey, those guys are tremendous. Rick Barry was a great analyst. And then we've seen how that's kind of developed over the course of time. TNT's always had a very good crew. But with the football guys I grew up with, on Monday Night Football was Al Michaels, Dan Dierdorf, and Frank Gifford. Obviously, Pat Summerall and John Madden were phenomenal for many years on CBS and Fox. And then the NBC number one was Dick Enberg. And when I first started watching football, he was working with Merlin Olsen, former NFL stud and actor. He was on Little House on the Prairie for years. And John Lund, who is a good friend of mine, used to work in Portland. Many of you know him. He did a radio show in Utah for years with Merlin Olsen's grandson, I think. I think it was his grandson. But, John told me that on the day that Merlin passed, that he was still on radio in Utah, and that they went through and, talked about a lot of different stories. But those guys are great. Dick Enberg was phenomenal. But that was kind of my NFL cruise when I was growing up. And, with the in-studio guys, Joe Gibbs did it for a while. Obviously, O.J. Simpson, he was terrific. He would do in-studio stuff, and he'd be on the field doing sideline reporting at times. Eric Dickerson did Monday Night Football. He was terrible. I guess what I'm trying to say is that, you can be a great player, you can be a Hall of Famer and be terrific, but, going into a broadcasting role, that's a totally different ballgame. Even if you're a great player, if you don't have the natural chops or comfort behind a camera or in front of a microphone, that's going to be a bit of a transition. And so we've seen a lot of different players or superstar players flame out. And then some guys make that transition, and it's very smooth and comfortable for them. Lynn Swann was very good behind the mic for years. He was very calm and very smooth. Pat Hayden, who was a very good college player, he was great behind the microphone. It's just weird how that transition works, but I do remember Joe Montana being very uncomfortable in that studio role. John Elway tried to do a couple of studio hits with NBC. He was awful. John Elway is a stud, but not a good commentator. He was also on what's that show? Tim the Toolman Taylor, Home Improvement. He was on an episode of that too, and he was bad there. It's like, hey, John, love you, man, but any commentating or acting, you need to not do that ever again because it's very bad, and just stick to doing what you do best, playing football or running a football team and winning championships. Even Magic Johnson. Isaiah Thomas and Magic Johnson were particularly awful behind the microphone. I thought the NBA Finals there for a while with Magic on the mic was just terrible. Like, it's amazing to me, like Magic, one of the greatest players of all time and incredibly successful in the business world, but not great as an analyst because he talks too much. And, his social media it leaves a lot to be desired because he states a lot of obvious things. So Magic wasn't very good either. So I don't know. It's kind of hit or miss. It's tough. And then some guys who weren't great players turn out to be great broadcasters. Or coaches, most coaches that transition turn out to be good broadcasters. Like Doc Rivers, he annoys me as a coach because he's always yelling at officials. And, his face is sweating so much because he's yelling at the officials. But behind the microphone, he was a great analyst. Steve Kerr was very good as an analyst. I don't know. What's that group again? Mike Tirico and Reggie Miller. I know where you all stand on Reggie. Most of you can't stand him. I love Reggie. Who cares? If the games are good and the players are there, I'm going to watch. The only guy I can't stand, there are two guys right now that are on my no-no list. Everyone's got no-no lists for different things. Stan Van Gundy for basketball games. I can't do it. I can't do Stan Van. His voice, and he looks like Ron Jeremy, and everything about Stan Van drives me crazy. So I just mute that stuff. And I can't stand Tony Romo. I've tried. I gave him a chance. I gave him another chance, but Tony Romo is too excitable, almost like he's under the influence of something, and he talks over Jim Nantz. And I don't need a guy who's going to make life difficult for Jim Nantz. Jim Nantz is one of the superstar broadcasters. So, you have Dick Enberg and Al Michaels and all these guys. Jim Nantz is right up there near the top. He's been on the soundtrack of our lives for so long, hasn't he? Whether it be the NFL or the Masters, the NCAA tournament. Like, Jim Nantz is a stud. And Tony Romo's out of control. He is absolutely wild. He's always wild. He's out of control. He talks too much. He gets too excitable. Gee, I don't know, Jim. What do you think they should do? Tony, settle down. Do they have anything they can give him? Maybe a sedative or something? I don't know, Jim. What would you do? It's just too much. I think right now, and I know a lot of people hate Joe Buck. I like Joe Buck. He and Troy Aikman and Shacker really hates Joe Buck. Anyone from San Francisco does for some reason. But Troy Aikman and Joe Buck do a great job on Monday Night Football. I like Tirico on football more than basketball. I thought Tirico and John Gruden on Monday Night Football was fabulous. And John Gruden is great behind a microphone. He's got a great personality. He does have the Chucky face, but I can get past that. But he gives great insight because he understands the game. And the other thing that you feel when you listen to John Gruden is the passion that he talks with. Like Spider 2Y Banana or whatever that play call is. Like, he loves football. He loves talking football. He loves quarterbacks. He loves breaking it down. That's why he developed the Fired Football Coaches of America. And he's got that place, that office where he meets with other coaches who have been fired, and they break tape, and he's got these different rooms, and they talk about football, and they keep themselves – it's like a workout program for fired coaches to keep themselves, ready to roll and to keep their mental game strong with the game and stay up on all the changes within the league. But I like John Gruden. But right now, my two no-nos are it's Stan Van Gundy and and freaking Tony Romo. I just can't take it, man. And I feel bad for Olsen, the former tight end. I think he played for Europe in Seattle, but Greg Olsen was a long-time tight end, and he's turned out to be a fabulous broadcaster. And he got to the number one slot with Kevin Burkhardt, and he called the Super Bowl with the Chiefs and Eagles from 2 years ago. Like, he is a great broadcaster. He's terrific, and he's their best. The problem is Tom Brady's got the star power, and he won 7 Super Bowls, and he signed that massive deal with Fox, and so they just automatically gave him the number one chair. And Greg Olsen's upset about it, and I would be too, but he knows, like we all do, it's like, sorry, man, you're not Tom Brady. But I don't know, do you tune into games because of who's broadcasting? Like, if the game's great, aren't you going to watch it regardless? I mean, I guess I'm like that too, although there are certain broadcasters like Ian Eagle, who is so good that I'll tune in to watch net games just so I can hear what he has to say. Like, I'll tune in for certain baseball broadcast crews, like the Giants, Krupp and Kuip, for years, just awesome. Like, some guys are so good that I'll tune in to listen to them, even if I don't care too much about the teams that are playing. I think Kevin Calabro is the same. Calabro is so good at broadcasting NBA games that I'll listen to him no matter where he's at, on radio with ESPN, or if he's doing the Blazer games. Like, I've followed Kevin Calabro for years. He was great up in Seattle, although I'm not a Sonics fan, and I kind of like the fact that their team got taken away because whatever, Seattle, who cares? But Kevin Calabro is great, and he was great with Jim Durham. He's great with he was great with Dr. Jack. I thought Dr. Jack and Calabro were fabulous. But, man, we've had some great broadcasters. So I'm okay with Tirico and Reggie. I think that'll be fine. And with Tom Brady, I think he's been awful this year. Maybe he'll get better with time. I don't know. But he still seems a little bit robotic for my liking. And, he's going to work hard and continue to prepare and do everything he can to get better. But it has not been a good first year for Brady. And so it probably kills Greg Olsen because he's sitting back watching going, this guy's not good. And yet he gets the number one slot and gets to call the Super Bowl. And I'm on the sideline because I'm not Tom Brady and I don't have the star power that Tom Brady does, but I'm a better broadcaster. And that's just life sometimes, right? That's the way it goes. Kevin Harlan, too, is phenomenal. Like, he is a superstar broadcaster. Kevin Harlan is great. Ian Eagle and Kevin Harlan right now are, they're A-list dudes. They're terrific. I enjoy listening to both of them a great deal. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Coming up next, Brad Botkin, CBS Sports, covers the NBA. He's based out of Miami, so he's got a pretty good sense on what's going on with the Heat. I want to find out what's going to happen with Jimmy Butler. And then I want to get his take on the young Trailblazers and what he thinks about Tamani and Denny. And then we'll get his feel for what some of the teams around the league are thinking in regards to the second apron and how difficult that's going to be able to move out some of the bigger contracts, because the Trailblazers have 3 guys that they're going to need to move soon in Anthony Simons, DeAndre Ayton, and Jeremy Grant. So Brad Botkin, CBS Sports, is coming up next. And the current line here at Spirit Mountain Casino for the Super Bowl 59 with the Chiefs and Eagles. Kansas City favored by 1.5, and the total set at 49 points. You got the Rip City Drive. Okay, sounds good. All right, very happy to welcome back to the show a gentleman who covers the NBA. He's one of my favorite guys to talk to. He's with CBS Sports. It's Brad Bakken who's back. And, Brad, it's great to have you back on the show. A long time no chat. I hope you are well. This came up last night when I was at the Blazer game. We were talking about some of the snubs, and I don't normally get hung up on snubs for All-Star, but what about Sabonis? 20 points, 14 boards per game. I think he's got over 40 double-doubles on the season. Why did the coaches not reward him? What's up with that?
I don't know. I mean, I think that the start that the Kings got off to, and for some reason, Sabonis has just never had a respect level, it seems to me, around the league that would be commensurate with his statistical profile, which is, top 10 MVP level type stuff. I mean, forget All-Star. I think he has a legitimate chance to finish top 10 in MVP voting. So it's like, how can you not be on the All-Star team? And anytime you have a snub, you've got to talk about who they would replace. It's easy to say, oh, this guy should have made it. There are a lot of guys having All-Star seasons, but there's not a reasonable person that they would replace. I think you got to take out Sengun. I know there obviously was not even a temptation, but a desire to reward the winning that is happening in Houston with an All-Star. If you wanted to do that, to me, Jalen Green's could have easily been put in over Harden. So Sengun's shooting 49% from the floor. Sabonis is shooting 48% from three. He's 64-60 shooting splits over the last 13 games. They're 10-3. It took a while for their season to turn around under Christie, but you said it, 42 double-doubles, leads the league. He's their hub at that high post area. He's one of the best screeners. He's a monster rebounder. He's putting up numbers, if you go look at him, with guys that are shooting what he's shooting, over 60% from the field, 21 points, 14 rebounds. They are numbers that haven't been put up by anyone not named Wilt Chamberlain. So it's pretty extreme, the numbers that we're seeing from him, that he wouldn't be on an All-Star team.
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%. Brad, I know you're a big fan of the parity that we're seeing across the league now, and I am too. We knew that Boston and Oklahoma City going into the year were going to be good, but how about some of these surprising teams? Houston, second in the West right now. Memphis is right behind them. And then you've got the Knicks, who are playing well in the East with their vets, and Cleveland's been dominant throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, I love it. It makes the trade deadline especially fun because there's so many teams that feel like they're one or two moves away. And in an era like this, a trade for P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford can end up making you a finals team like it did last year. It doesn't have to be blockbuster guys because everybody's so bunched up. So, yeah, I love it. It keeps everybody in play. And I just like the drama of not knowing who's going to win. I like new teams being in the mix, new players being exposed to fans. The stuff gets stale. As fun as the Warriors and Cavs were, when you're playing each other in the finals 4 straight years, it does get stale. I think most people would sign up for Steph Curry and LeBron James going at it for a championship every year, but that's an exception, those two players. If you have the same teams all the time, I've never been a huge fan of that. I know some people like the dynasty era of sports with the Bulls and the Warriors and the Spurs for a while, but I prefer the close-knit competition, not knowing who's going to win, throw the ball up, and a maybe a non-great team can win a title. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're talking with Brad Bakken from CBS Sports. You're based out of the Miami area. What's going on with Jimmy Butler and the Heat? What went sideways there?
Oh, guys, Chad, if you look over, it's like, I know that they live in a different world and athletes, but with the way that money is around the world and in the country, right? With this wealth gap that just keeps getting more and more, and inflation and like real world stuff with like the price of eggs for regular people, and you got these guys getting paid $48 million, and he just doesn't want to play basketball because they won't give him the contract next year. Like, dude, you're being paid right now. You've been paid very handsomely. Like, you've got money for generations, And I think that's all that's happening is the ego of a player that thinks that because of what he did in the past, he has earned a contract extension that the Heat are rightfully hesitant to give. If you look at, like, the Clippers let Paul George go, it's a totally different thing. Now, they got one over on the Players Association with the CBA. The second apron is making it very, very punitive and very, very difficult for these players to now have the leverage that they used to, because there are so many fewer teams that now have the financial capability to pay them. So this threat level of Jimmy Butler, when he used to just say, well, fine, I'll just leave in free agency and you'll lose me for nothing. It's like, oh, yeah, where are you going to go next year? Who's got the money to sign you? Teams are too strapped. And so the teams that you're seeing, they're operating smartly, are a team like the Knicks. Okay, they took time. It takes time. There's not something that you can cook. You can't microwave this thing anymore like the Suns tried to do. You got to take 2 or 3 years. You got to sign smart, shorter contracts that can come off your books, tradable contracts that can come off your books that way. You got to acquire young talent at cheap prices like Oklahoma City's doing, so that when a move becomes available for you to strike, like the Knicks did with Towns or whatever, you're in place to do it. And so now what you're seeing is all these teams are planning their books 2-3 years ahead. They're trying to get rid of bloated salaries, not pick up Jimmy Butler at whatever he is, 35 years old, and have him on the books for the next 3 years. Those are the contracts that are being reconsidered by these teams. They want more flexibility, less money on the books with aging players. They want to be able to move around in this era around that second apron. And it's just making the leverage of guys like Jimmy Butler a lot less than they like to see. They're used to being able to going in and saying, I don't want to be here anymore, trade me or I'm going to leave for nothing, and they just get their way. The market is not dictating that anymore.
All right, so with what you just said about the restrictions with the second apron and teams trying to figure out the financial ramifications, what impact is that going to have on the trade deadline? Do you think less moves, especially with the bigger salary numbers of $20+ million per year? How do you see that shaking out?
It's difficult for the high-priced guys. You really make these moves for a guy like De'Aaron Fox, who I think is going to be traded pretty. There's some local reporting happening that this thing's pretty close to being done. None of the big dogs are saying it yet, but if you're looking at the local reporting in San Antonio, because San Antonio has planned this thing, their books are going to be clean. They've acquired a bunch of draft picks. They are ready to strike with Wembanyama in place for a guy like Fox, the way the Knicks were with Karl-Anthony Towns. So that's a perfect scenario. But if it were easy to move these high salary guys, Brandon Ingram would have already been moved. Zach LaVine would have been moved moons ago. You know, Jimmy Butler would be moved by now. So, yeah, these bigger contracts, very, very difficult to move them now. You kind of have to get 3-4 teams involved now, maybe to try to find a team. I mean, right now, Jimmy Butler, his biggest asset for a team, honestly, as crazy as this sounds, is it might be cap relief. If you look at, like, the Warriors, for instance, and you think, let's go get Jimmy Butler, maybe we make one more push with Curry. Okay, yeah, there's truth in that. But also, Butler just comes off the books next year. So they can get off Wiggins' money and let Butler walk, and they start clearing their books. These are the types of moves that actually teams are starting to make. Jimmy Butler, as crazy as it sounds, might be more of a cap move than an actually we think he's going to help us win a championship.
Yeah, it's crazy to even think of that in those terms, that Jimmy Butler now just a valuable expiring contract. So what makes the most sense? Where do you think he's going to – do you think the Heat will move him? And if so, is it going to be Phoenix or Golden State?
I don't know, man. If it's Phoenix, it's got to be a super multi-team deal. You know, I always hold out for these teams you're not hearing anything about. The Bucks have sort of been in the background with some of the whispers. But the Pelicans popped up today with a Brandon Ingram swap. I really don't have any clue where. I wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy Butler just remains in Miami and Pat Riley just says, we're going to go for, if you're going to we're going to make you opt in next year. We know you want a deal, and maybe we can find a sign and trade if we can do an extension at a reasonable number, or maybe they just really battle this thing out and make him kind of give up on the team and be such a problem that they can suspend him next year. I wouldn't be surprised anyway. The one that I think is going to happen is I think there's more and more winds blowing toward a Levine to Golden State, and I think Fox is going to end up in San Antonio. There's too much smoke there. I think those are going to be the two big moves. And then Cam Johnson is wanted by a lot of teams, but that's on a smaller level. But I think the Warriors, which is going to raise an interesting question, because they could have had Levine a while ago if they would have used Chris Paul's money as a trade exception. But they just like I said before, teams are just letting these guys walk now. They'd rather let guys walk than take on money that's going to tie their books up long term. So they let Chris Paul walk, which would have been fine if they're going to maintain that path. But if you're going to go get Levine now anyway, at the cost of, say, a Wiggins, who they don't want to give up now, or a bunch of other picks, a bunch of other people that they aggregate, it's going to pose the question: why didn't he just do it back when he had Chris Paul's money to work with? So I do think he's going to end up there, and it's going to beg that question. And I think De'Aaron Fox is going to end up in San Antonio, and that's going to be really interesting come playoff time. If the Spurs find a way to get out of the play-in, or hell, maybe even go on a run and end up in a top 6 seed, I would not want to see a De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama team in the first round of the playoffs. That would be super fun.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. De'Aaron Fox is so much fun to watch because he's so fast with the ball in his hands, and Wemby is a freak. So that's got the potential for greatness right there.
Yeah.
I know Blazer fans would like to know what you think with the young talent that we're seeing right now, where Scoot and Shaden appear to be emerging. Klingon's been good in limited minutes this year, and then you've got the two dynamos at forward with Tamani Kamara and Denny Avdia. What do you think about the young group of 5 guys that they have?
The 5 guys you just named it is an intriguing lineup moving forward, isn't it? I mean, Klingon, in a non-Wembanyama world, is a multi-time Defensive Player of the Year guy. He's remarkable. Sharp shooting still isn't there, and certainly Scoots isn't. And so I know the run he's been on. To me, this whole thing still just hinges on Scoot. It really does. And I hate to be a pessimist, but I just don't really see it when I watch. I mean, I think he's going to end up having these stretches. He's going to be a player. He's going to, I think, ultimately be a bench player. And I hate to put that kind of ceiling on a guy with that kind of ability, but I think how excited you are about the Blazers obviously has a lot to do with how much you believe in this upward trend of Scoot and how much you think it can continue. And I ultimately don't believe in point guards that are going to be the focal point of an offense that can't shoot. So I had this conversation a couple of days ago about Amen Thompson, and somebody was trying to say, oh, well, he's an exception to your rule. Because I've always knocked for years. We've talked about this on the show before, but there was a run of point guards for a long time that were going in the lottery that couldn't shoot. Chris Dunn and Ricky Rubio and Marcus Smart and Emmanuel Mudiay and Elfrid Payton, and you could just go down. They just kept taking these guys in the lottery, and they kept saying, "We'll teach him to shoot. He can do all these other things." The Magic took Anthony Black. He can do all these other things. I don't think you can just teach guys to shoot like that. There's always exceptions. Kyle Lowry, Kawhi Leonard, guys that come in as bad shooters and improve. But is Scoot Henderson going to become a guy that you're really going to fear pulling up off the dribble? So Amen Thompson, when you're not the focal point of the offense and you can be an Andre Iguodala type, then the fact that you aren't the primary threat coming off ball screens and shaping the defense that way isn't as big of a deal. But if you're going to be a superstar point guard, you have to be a threat pulling up off the dribble, spacing the defense. You have to draw multiple defenders. And I just don't see him evolving into that type of player. I really don't. I think he's more of a second unit, come in, get downhill, energy. But I don't see him being a superstar. So I'm tempered in my enthusiasm about the Blazers because it's so tied to him.
Well, I think your concerns are valid, and I think that would be the primary concern with, people who are here in town who cover the team. I did want to ask, from the people you talk to, how much separation for the young prospects who are going to be in the draft is there between the top with Cooper Flagg and everyone else?
Cooper Flag, from what I've watched of him, is he's so good. There's some other guys, but this race for Cooper is like it's not Wemby, but this dude, like the Blazers got to be gunning, the Hornets and like all these, the Pelicans and all these teams, man, like Utah. This is one of those drafts where whatever you think you're going to do over the end of this season, if you're like a play-in team, like say like the Hawks, who right now are a play-in team, but they lost Jalen Johnson, it's like, dude, go for Cooper. Go for Cooper. I mean, he's so good. So it's a way better class than last year, and there's other really good players, but the gap is still pretty high. Cooper Flag's the clear number one, and a number one worth really going to fight for in terms of tanking. Like last year wasn't worth, like, oh man, let's toss our season aside to get Ricochet. Like this one is like, if you've got a shot, go, because with the flattening of the odds, the Hawks got the first pick last year with I think it was like 3% chance. So if you can even get your chances up into the 6-7%, you're going to see a lot of teams doing that.
Oh man, because it's like if you get, like if you're Portland, for example, if you land Cooper Flag, like it changes your franchise instantly. It's an instant changer.
Oh my God, he's so, like, his defense, his motor, his ability to pass, the what you want out of these modern type players that are versatile, that can be the hub of an offense. His passing is going to be talked about a lot when he gets into the league. But we talked about Sabonis earlier, and that ability to be that high hub and play off of him. He's a really smart passer. He's athletic. He defends. And his motor, he's one of these like Russell Westbrook type motors. I mean, the guy just plays hard all the time. And he's going to be so yeah. If the Blazers get him, consider me back on the bandwagon. And I hope that Scoot becomes a guy that, can be Ja Morant and not be a good shooter and still be a superstar. I just think that those guys are such exceptions to the rule. Generally speaking, you've got like the Darius Garland type is a more prototypical point guard these days. It's very difficult to be athletic enough and forceful enough downhill to be able to have that be your main thing instead of shooting. It's just, even Giannis has trouble just barreling through walls. And, what's Scoot, whatever he is, 6'2", 6'3", like, he's not a good finisher. He's actually has an abysmal finishing rate. So is he going to be able to dominate like Ja Morant, just getting into the paint and being a 32% shooter? I have my doubts, but I hope he's a downhill force if he can figure out actually how to consistently finish.
Well, I'm with you, Brad. I've had people try to explain to me, and there are people within the league that believe you can teach people to shoot, but I just don't buy it. I think that that's a skill that, if you've got it, you've got it, and if you don't, then I don't think you can take a guy who shoots 29% from three and turn him into a 36, 37% three-point shooter. It doesn't happen very often. I don't buy it.
It doesn't. There's far more examples of guys that I actually had this argument with somebody a couple of weeks ago on the radio of this talent versus work thing. I just, shooting is a talent, and it's strange to me that whenever you talk to the greatest shooters ever, or people talk about the greatest shooters ever, they always want to talk about Steph Curry spends so much time in the gym, and Kevin Durant spends so much time in the gym, Ray Allen so much time in the gym, and it's like, then what you're suggesting is that guys who can't shoot are just lazy. That it has nothing to do with Steph Curry has a talent. Ray Allen has a talent. And then, yes, he went and worked on it. And because he's so talented, that work pays immediate dividends. There are some people that don't have the shooting talent, so they work and work and work, and it still doesn't get any better. I just think that for some reason there's this idea of romanticizing hard work at the expense of recognizing talent. And I think it's because people want to believe that hard work can overcome anything, because then anybody can do it, and they don't want to accept the harsh truth that talent is talent, and not everybody has it. And I don't think they do it. I'm telling you. Go look at the lottery picks from like 09 through like 16. They're littered. Moutier, Peyton, Dunn, Smart, Rubio, Michael Carter Williams. They just keep taking them. Oh, they're so talented. We can teach them to shoot. They're such good athletes. No, you can't. One of them will accidentally pop, but 9% of them won't.
Well, I think you and I are examples, right? Like we could dedicate the next 5 years to getting in the gym and just putting up shots to try and become great shooters. And we wouldn't do it because, you know why? I don't have the natural God-given talent to be able to do that. It's not my skill. And neither is it yours.
It's all relative in the NBA, too. Like, if you took these guys in the NBA and put them at LA Fitness, they'd look like Ray Allen. But
yes.
at an NBA level, Scoot Henderson is just not going to be a shooter. So he's either got to become an unbelievable get-into-paint downhill finisher, which is easier to believe because of his downhill force, but you got to be so unbelievably good at that, like prime Derrick Rose, prime Russell Westbrook, John Morant right now. You're talking about the tippy top of the downhill forceful athletes that can get away with being non-shooters. Other than that, good luck.
Yeah, and you're right. Great point about Westbrook. That's the reason why he was able to get away with the inconsistent perimeter shooting for years, because no one played at his speed or finished like he did. He could get to the rim anytime he wanted. Yeah, it was different.
No, he's one. Those guys like that, prime Derrick Rose, prime Russell Westbrook, they are as one of one as Steph Curry is as a shooter. It's like saying a good shooter can be Steph Curry. Just because Scoot Henderson has the profile that he's a downhill forceful guy, there's guys that are good shooters too, like Luke Kennard, but he's not Steph Curry. Like, it's whole, and the downhill level that you have to be to get away with not shooting is very high. You know, John Wall got away with it for a while. But even those guys, I think, were better shooters than Scoot, to be honest. Like,
I agree.
I think he's. I kind of hope to look dumb on this, but I think in the end he's an energy guy that hopefully comes in and defends and plays his ass off and goes downhill and tries to get to the rim and create havoc, and he ends up getting you 12 points a game. But I think it's unlikely that he is your next Damian Lillard, which was obviously the hope.
Before you go, how old is your daughter now?
10. She is 10.
Well, when she hits 14, we need to have a conversation, because I need help on learning how to communicate with a 14-year-old daughter. So I can't wait until you hit that age range.
My only communication right now is through Squid Game. That's the only thing that I can communicate on. But I am, dude. I don't know if I've told you this, but I'm Father of the Year right now because my dog. Did I tell you about the Taylor Swift situation?
Oh no! Talk to me about this. This is awesome. What do you got,
dude? Okay, so like every daughter out there right now, my daughter's a Swiftie, and so she wanted to go to the concert, and it was $8,000 per ticket. So she has to go with an adult, obviously. So 2 tickets, 16 G's for like terrible seats in Miami. And I'm like, and I was actually like a total sucker. I was like, God, I think I'm going to find out. And I couldn't. I'm like, if I tried to tell my dad, like, hey, Dad, guess what? He would kill me. So I couldn't do it. But I ended up, and I'm not a resourceful person. I don't know how I did, but I go, you know what? I'm going to start looking like out of the country. And it turns out I found tickets in Spain for premium tickets for $250 per ticket. Yeah, so with the flight and everything, which I had points for, I flew my daughter and my wife to Spain, and they watched Taylor Swift for under $1,000.
Oh, my God.
Two tickets almost on the floor. She got to be in Spain for 2 days. It was like she was so happy. It was the best $1,000 I've ever spent. I watched the videos. Like, still, this was like 4 or 5 months ago, and I still watch the videos like twice a week. It's so cute watching her sing. It was the best gift I've ever bought. It was the best money I ever spent. And it also confirmed to me that Americans are idiots. The only reason you can charge 16 G's in America is because people are dumb enough to go into debt and just put it on a credit card. Like in Europe, people are like, yeah, right. There's no demand at that price. They got to lower that thing down to like reasonable rates here. There's no Jimmy Butler money over there. Come on. So I got it $250. We were almost on the floor. Unbelievable. So that's my contention. I'm Father of the Year, and Americans are idiots.
I love it.
Because you know why? I looked at the concert when it got to Miami, and it was all sold out. So nobody was scared off by it. They were all sold out. $8 for like a nosebleed. I mean, people are morons.
Gosh, you're a genius. I looked at Indianapolis. I looked up at Vancouver. I looked at multiple cities, and it was the same thing. Oh, that could be the key. Dude, what was her reaction?
She couldn't believe it. She was crying.
Like when you told her.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So when you told her initially, dude, that's it. Dude. Okay, I just bow down to you, man. That's ball. You are. You know what? That's freaking. That's Wemby status right there. That's baller status, man. The Cooper flag of fathers right there.
I'm telling you, right? But when I tell people, I feel like I'm like, I'm that guy that's like willing to. Oh, I love the music. Found me. Yeah. So, but like, I thought when I tell people, I'm almost embarrassed. Like I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so rich. I'm like flying my daughter to Spain. And it's like, no, it's actually the reverse. It's like so cheap. You got to do it.
Dude, you're awesome, man. We'll catch up soon. Great story, Bakken. Amazing.
All right, man. Thanks.
You got it. There's Brad Bakken. How about that? Dad of the Year, Brad Bakken. Looked at the prices in Miami. Ridiculous. He's like, screw that. Uses points to fly his daughter and his wife to Spain and gets premium tickets for like $200 to the Taylor concert. And now he's like Father of the Year status. All right, you got the Rip City Drive. Nice work, Bakken. All right. All right, big thanks to Brad Botkin for joining the show, CBS Sports. He really is a unique. I would like to meet Brad Botkin face-to-face. I've never had a chance to talk with him or meet him in person because he lives on the other side of the country. But he's one of those guys I'd like to meet. I always seem to connect with him well. But what baller status there is a Pops. He doesn't want to pay the $16,000 for a couple of tickets to the concert there in Miami to see Taylor Swift. So he ends up using points and flies his wife and daughter to Spain for a fraction of the cost because people aren't willing to pay ridiculous prices to go see Taylor in concert in those countries. Yep, Father of the Year. Father of the Year. Current line here at Spear Mountain Casino for the Super Bowl. Chiefs 1.5-point favorite over the Eagles. And the total set at 49. Tony from Boring has chimed back in, says Brad's breakdown of hard work versus talent was great. I never heard anyone with a take like that. That said, Bino never stood a chance. You want to break the news to him, or should I? I still love that. Brian, how many free throws did I hit? Like 66? We shot 100 free throws. He hit 49. I hit like 65 or 66. I can't remember if I hit 69, 67. I hit just under 70. I hadn't shot free throws in years, but that was the one thing I was good at when it came to basketball. I could shoot the ball okay, but I was good at free throws. Good at shooting free throws. I sucked at everything else, but I could make free throws. So that would have made Bill Schonely happy. All right, tomorrow. So tomorrow's the first of 2 games. So the Suns are going to be in town. Blazers have won 6 of 7. Tip-off at 7. Burkhart will have game day starting at 5 live from Moda Center. And then Portland will get an off day on Sunday, and then they play back-to-back games on Monday, Tuesday. They got Phoenix again Monday, and then the Indiana Pacers will be on Tuesday. So a busy stretch of the schedule in January for Portland before they have, like everyone else, a light month of February before the final push in March and at the beginning of April until we get to the end of the season. The good thing is about Scoot is that, the shooting is a concern, but even if he can't develop into the dominant, number one alpha on the team, if they're to land Cooper Flagg in the lottery, then that's not going to matter nearly as much because Cooper will be the alpha. And then all of a sudden you got Cooper. I mean, this is the problem with watching Cooper Flagg. And if you watch the Duke game, you understand the situation. He's awesome. He's freaking awesome. If you get Cooper Flagg, and then all of a sudden you got Scoot, Shaden, Tamani, Denny, and Klingon, like that's a young core right there. That would be a beautiful thing. Now, Brad believes the same thing that I've heard and, what he was talking about. The problem is right now is that, teams, it's going to be hard to make moves at the deadline because of the restrictions with the second apron. Teams are afraid to make moves and the financial penalties as they're still trying to get navigate these uncharted waters. Now, the one good news or good piece of news for Tamani Kamara, he was selected to participate in the Rising Stars. So both Scoot and Tamani will be a part of the All-Star Weekend. All right, that's going to do it for us. Big thanks to all of you for taking time to listen. I appreciate you. Big thanks to Michael Shacker, who is at Master Control engineering the program today, and Brad Botkin for taking time to join us from Miami.